Tears brimmed in her eyes. Jiang Wantong curled into Duan Jingming, pressing her face against his chest, looking utterly pitiful. Duan Jingming's face went dark. "Brother, how can you talk about Wantong like that? She's my girlfriend." Duan Qiyu barely lifted his cold stare. "Get lost too." Duan Jingming's fists tightened. "What did I do to piss you off lately? If you've got a problem with me, say it to my face." Duan Qiyu looked at his brother, his expression unreadable. No one knew he'd been jealous of his younger brother since they were kids. Jealous that Duan Jingming met Wen Li first, won her love so easily, and then threw it away. But at the same time, he was grateful. His brother's betrayal had opened a door. Duan Qiyu held his stare for 2 seconds, said nothing, then stepped forward and took Chinsu's phone. 1 glance was all it took. Chinsu caught on immediately and hurried back to his girlfriend's side. The tension dropped. Wen Li turned toward Duan Qiyu. The man stood there holding her flowers in one hand and her phone in the other, and something in her chest went soft and warm. Duan Qiyu's anger toward Duan Jingming was mostly because of her. Wen Li wasn't being arrogant. She knew Duan Qiyu had a strong sense of responsibility. He'd proposed marriage after one night together and had agreed to keep their relationship quiet. So of course he'd take her side against his brother. The punch he'd landed on Duan Jingming at the company had made that pretty clear. Looking at Duan Qiyu, Wen Li felt safe. She smiled and struck a few poses for the photos. The man focused behind the lens, snapping several shots without a trace of impatience. He handed the phone back and slid an arm around her shoulders. "Let's go." Wen Li walked beside him. Chinsu stood there clutching his phone, stunned. The eldest Duan heir was practically a legend in their circle, and up close, he absolutely lived up to it. Only 5 years older than them, but the man's presence outmatched even Chinsu's own father. And weirdly enough, standing next to Sister Wen Li, he looked perfect. Put him next to Duan Jingming, and the older brother clearly suited her better. Chinsu watched them disappear, then took his girlfriend's hand and left. Within seconds, only 2 people remained. Duan Jingming, jaw tight and eyes blazing, and Jiang Wantong, bewildered and silent. Outside the theater, Chinsu posted on his social feed a handful of group photos with the caption, "Took my girl to see my sister's performance today. Wow. Incredible. Gotta come again next time. Sis, please hook me up with VIP tickets again." Soon after, over at the Wen family villa, when Ling had just been discharged from the hospital, he scrolled through his feed and spotted Chinsu's post. The sight of Wen Li's smiling face in those photos, paired with the caption, hit him like a slap. His own sister hadn't invited him to the show. She gave tickets to some outsider and let him call her sister, and she was the one who'd put him in the hospital. He'd just gotten out today, and she hadn't even sent a single message. Fury spiked through him when Ling barreled out of his room and yelled down the stairs at his mother, who was mid-conversation with a servant. "Mom, I lied to you." Chu Jing looked up. "Lied about what?" "The wound on my head. Wen Li hit me with a bottle. I didn't fall." "What?" "That girl has lost her mind." Backstage, Wen Li changed out of her gown and slipped into the luxury car Duan Qiyu was driving. He sat in the driver's seat, keying the restaurant address into the navigation. That was when she remembered the French words he'd whispered in her ear inside the theater. "Brother you. What does that French sentence mean?" "Eager to know, huh?" "Yes. Let me slide it in first." Wen Li's eyes went wide. The man leaned over, grabbed her seat belt, and a low, husky voice rumbled near her ear. "I meant this." Click. The buckle locked into place. Wen Li bit her lower lip. "I wasn't thinking anything dirty." A soft chuckle. "I knowed I was the one thinking dirty." Wen Li felt her face heat. She knew he was teasing her, and she tried to justify it inside her own head. It wasn't her fault her mind had jumped there. Blame what happened that rainy night on her living room sofa. After that, they'd both been busy, barely seeing each other except through messages, so hearing that phrase out of nowhere. Yeah, her thoughts had wandered. She changed the subject. So what does the French mean? Her phone rang. Wen Li pulled it out, saw the caller ID, and her expression went cold. She hesitated for half a second, then answered that a woman's furious voice blasted through the speaker. Wen Li, you've got some nerve, hitting your brother. It was the first call from her mother since she'd been reborn, no greeting, no check-in. Just pure accusation. Wen Li's voice came out cold as steel. You said it yourself, he's my brother. What's wrong with an older sister disciplining her younger brother? You dare talk back to me? Chu Jing's voice pitched higher. You think climbing your way into the Duan family means you can look down on the Wen family now? Without us, Duan Jingming wouldn't have given you a second glance back then, let alone brought you to the Duan mansion. Without the Wen family, you'd be nothing. A stray cat on the street. A guy like Duan Jingming wouldn't even look your way. And instead of gratitude, you resent us. Now you even hit your brother. I'm your mother. Should I hit you too? Chu Jing let every word fly, but she wasn't wrong about one thing. Duan Jingming had first seen Wen Li at a party the Wen family hosted. While everyone else gathered in the front hall, draped in silk and clinking champagne glasses, she'd been alone in the back piano room, playing. Wen Li had been away from all the noise, and that was exactly where Duan Jingming had wandered by accident. Their story started that night. The old Wen Li had believed that even if she were nothing but a weed growing by the roadside, Duan Jingming would still pick her and take her home. Now she was wide awake. Cinderella was a fairy tale. Even Jiang Wantong, who'd poured everything she had into it, believed a sparrow could turn into a phoenix. But it was only ever a sweet, temporary indulgence with a countdown clock. Duan Jingming had always been selfish. Back then, he'd been drawn to Wen Li because she stood out so sharply from the rest of the Wen family. It stirred his protective instincts. Now he felt that same pity for fragile, sickly Jiang Wantong. In the end, neither she nor Jiang Wantong were any different to him, except that Wen Li had spent years by his side. But Duan Jingming had only ever loved one person, himself. Wen Li drew a slow breath and let it out, steadying her voice. I had a reason for hitting Wen Ling, and all these years, you went behind my back asking Duan Jingming for favors. Yet that's more than enough to repay whatever debt you think I owe the Wen family. You didn't have to call. I was planning to come tell you anyway. I've officially broken up with Duan Jingming. He is who he is. You are who you are. If the Wen family wants anything from him going forward, that's between you two. I don't care whether he gives it or not. Chu Jing seized on only one thing. You broke up with Duan Jingming. Have you lost your mind? You. Wen Li hung up and blocked the number. Silence at last. The car sat still in the parking lot, dead quiet. She closed her eyes and leaned her head back, trying to slow her pulse. Then she felt it. A warm, dry touch on her head. His hand, gently stroking her hair. Wen Li opened her eyes and turned. Duan Qiyu was watching her, his gaze soft. Want a hug? His voice was steady and clear, but underneath it, she caught a faint thread of hesitation. All the hurt she'd been holding down, all the pain with nowhere to go, suddenly found an opening. Her nose stung. She let out a small, muffled sound. He slid his seat back, unbuckled her seat belt, and lifted her straight into his arms, like she weighed nothing at all, like holding a child. His warmth seeped into her, and the familiar scent of cool sandalwood settled the chaos in her chest. Wen Li looped her arms around his neck, letting herself lean on him, just for this moment. She buried her face in the curve of his shoulder and asked, voice still muffled. So what does the French mean? His low, magnetic voice drifted up, its flower language. I only have eyes for you. Her heartbeat stuttered. Her fingers curled into the fabric of his jacket without thinking. Wen Li tipped her head up to look at him and fell straight into a deep, boundless ocean. She knew she should say something. But what was she supposed to say? Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had no idea what to do. She couldn't tell if he was explaining what that bouquet meant, or if he was confessing to her. Her breath came in short, ragged bursts. Her eyes locked on his face. Grr. Her stomach chose that exact second to growl. Reality snapped back. She pressed a hand to her belly, and heat flooded her cheeks. I'm hungry. She'd only had some juice before the evening performance. She hadn't eaten anything that a low laugh escaped him. Let's go eat. Duan Qiyu helped her back into the passenger seat, buckled her in, and a moment later the car pulled out of the parking lot at the Wen family villa. Chu Jing stared at her phone. The same message played over and over. The number you have dialed is busy. She tried a few more times before it clicked she'd been blocked. Furious, she hurled the phone onto the sofa. Unbelievable. That girl has really grown a backbone. From the sofa, Wen Ling jumped in, equally indignant. Yeah, Mom. Wen Li's gotten tough. Duan Jingming cheated, and she just broke up with him. Bam. Done. Duan Jingming cheated. Chu Jing's frown deepened. Wen Ling spelled it out for her. Yeah, with his college first loved, they're back together now. Chu Jing's stomach dropped. If Duan Jingming didn't love Wen Li anymore, the Wen family was about to lose a whole lot of business collaborations with him. It's easier to climb up than to hold on when you're falling. Over the years, they'd gotten far too comfortable running to the Duan family for help. Now that the two of them were finished, knowing Duan Jingming's personality, why would he keep helping the Wens? Chu Jing hurried over and sat down next to her son. Ling, tell me more. What exactly is Duan Jingming's attitude toward Wen Li right now? He wants everything to be hooked up with Jiang Wantong, but he still wants my sister. Wen Li wasn't having it. She ended it. A spark lit in Chu Jing's eyes. You're saying Duan Jingming still wants to be with your sister? Yet he's loved her for years. He can't just switch that off. The way he acts, he's not planning to let her go at all. Chu Jing clapped her hands together, her red lips curving into a smile. Not letting go is perfect. I'll find a way to get them back together. Watching his mother's sudden excitement, Wen Ling let out a sneer. What could you possibly do about those two? Chu Jing shot him a sharp look. You're just a kid. Stay out of it. I'll talk to your father. After dinner, Duan Qiyu dropped Wen Li off at her apartment building. He had an international conference call scheduled across time zones. Wen Li clutched the bouquet and waved goodbye. Once his car disappeared from sight, she turned and headed inside, a smile tugging at her lips. She was clearly in a good mood. Without warning, a dark figure lunged out and slammed her against the wall. The expensive bouquet flew from her hand and hit the ground with a heavy thud. She steadied herself and her eyes focused on the face in front of her. Duan Jingming. In a good mood? The mockery in his voice was razor-sharp. Wen Li let out a cold laugh. More than good, I'm fantastic. Duan Jingming pressed his tongue hard against his back teeth, contempt written across his entire face. Ollie, if you think you can use my brother to get back at me, you've miscalculated. That cold-blooded animal, you could strip naked right in front of him, and he wouldn't even blink. Wen Li froze for just a second, then the corner of her mouth lifted. Brother Yu is upright and outstanding. Anyone can see that he's nothing like a spoiled playboy who thinks with his dick. The people who know you best know exactly where to stab to make it hurt. Every word between them was poison. Duan Jingming's eyes blazed. What do you mean, thinks with his dick? My entire life, you were the only woman I ever had. Right up until I died. If you hadn't picked a fight with me, I never would have slept with Jiang Wantong in the first place. Wen Li shoved him hard. Don't you dare disgust me. The Wen Li from your last life died in that car crash. The Wen Li in this life isn't picking fights. She's breaking up with you for good. Sleep with whoever you want. But don't you use me as your excuse, and don't you stand there and yap in front of me. Just the sight of your face makes me sick. A cheating man was like a toothbrush someone had used to scrub a toilet. One look at it, and she wanted to throw up, for the sake of their good memories, and for the love Duan Jingming's parents had shown her. Wen Li had been holding back, but Duan Jingming just kept finding ways to lower her opinion of him. How shameless could a person be, blaming his own animal urges on her? Had she forced him to sleep with Jiang Wantong? He came back from rebirth, and the first thing he did was kiss Jiang Wantong. How long before he slept with her again? And did it even matter if he already had? After Wen Li's outburst, the air turned to ice. The summer night breeze moved between them, but it couldn't carry away the restless emotions crackling in the silence that a long moment passed. Then Duan Jingming's voice came out low. So that you've got your eyes on my brother now? Wen Li didn't answer. She wasn't sure about her own feelings. Right now, she felt a physical pull toward Duan Qiyu, along with an emotional dependence. Physically, she was drawn to his good looks. Emotionally, she craved the security he gave her, and there was one more thing. A dark corner she didn't want to examine too closely. Duan Qiyu was far superior to Duan Jingming. After Duan Jingming had wronged her, she'd accidentally gotten tangled up with Duan Qiyu, becoming his lover with the goal of marriage. This taboo relationship gave her a twisted satisfaction, a way of getting back at Duan Jingming. And that only clouded her heart even more. Greed, anger, obsession, love, hate, desire. Wen Li knew she was just as ordinary as anyone else. That aloofness she wore was a cage she'd built for herself. Afraid of losing control, afraid of loss, she pretended to be carefree. In life, it all comes down to dignity. That went for family. That went for love. She knew she lived stifled like this. But stepping out of her comfort zone was even harder. She was reflecting now. She needed time. Her silence gave Duan Jingming two interpretations. 1. She didn't like his brother, but didn't want to admit it while they were fighting. 2. She did like him, but only to use Qiyu to get back at him. That still counted as liking. As for the third possibility, that Wen Li genuinely loved Duan Qiyu, he refused to even consider it. After all these years, if not for him, those two never would have crossed paths in the first place. Duan Jingming's gaze dropped to the bouquet on the ground. Every ounce of his pent-up rage zeroed in on those flowers. His polished leather shoes stomped down hard. Wen Li shouted his name, but he ignored her completely. He ground the bouquet into the pavement, again and again. Then he kicked it far across the walkway and turned a fierce glare back on her. As long as I'm alive, you and my brother will never happen. Ali, you are mine. He strode away, leaving the mess behind him. Wen Li walked slowly over to the bouquet and crouched down. The roses had spilled out of their wrapper, their long stems snapped. Violet petals lay scattered everywhere, all their beauty destroyed. She tasted something bitter and salty on her lips. She picked up the one stem that was still mostly intact, cleaned up the rest, and carried that single rose home. It was just a bouquet. But it was from Duan Qiyu. Especially after hearing what it meant, her emotions sank into an unexplainable low. She put the stem in a vase, took a picture, and after a moment's thought, sent it to him. I accidentally damaged it. Only this one is left. Sorry I couldn't protect it. His reply came quickly. It's okay. That one stem carries the full meaning. Confused, Wen Li was about to ask what he meant when his next message appeared on her screen. I am devoted only to you. That single sentence instantly lifted Wen Li's mood. A new message popped up on the screen. What happened? Are you hurt? No go work that I'm going to wash up. Wen Li didn't want the Duan brothers turning on each other because of her right now. Not until Jiang Wantong and Duan Jingming got married next month. Once their relationship was stable, she and Duan Qiyu could come out in the open. Even if Duan Jingming tried to make trouble, he'd have to think twice. With Jiang Wantong and the Duan family elders to answer to, she was aiming to keep the damage minimal. But Duan Qiyu sensed something off. The way she'd cut the conversation short made him suspect more was going on. After his online meeting wrapped, he drove straight to the security booth at Wen Li's apartment building at 1 in the morning. He handed the guard on duty an entire carton of Zhonghua cigarettes. The man grinned and let him browse whatever footage he wanted. Duan Qiyu had no idea what could destroy a whole bouquet down to a single stem. Wen Li wasn't careless that on a hunch. He checked the surveillance from the moment she left the lobby to her front door after he'd dropped her off. Soon, Duan Jingming's figure appeared on the monitored NO audio. He couldn't hear what they said, but their body language screamed argument that it lasted only a few minutes. Duan Qiyu watched in silence, then left the booth. His phone read 2 a.m. He looked up at Wen Li's floor. Dark that he got into his car and made a call that a hoarse male voice picked up. What kind of emergency makes you call me in the middle of the night? Shun Henian sat up and leaned against the headboard. Help me rough someone up. Who? My brother. Huh. Shun Henian's drowsiness evaporated. Now he was interested. You want to hit him? That's easy. Why ask me instead of using your own guys? Afraid he'll find out it was you? If you want my help, you gotta give me the reason. They'd been friends for years and done countless deals together. Duan Qiyu wasn't planning to hide it. Li doesn't want to go public with us, yet if my brother and I turn on each other, it'll stress her out. Shun Henian chuckled. Old Duan, you're such a lost cause when it comes to Wen Li. I bet if she told you to bark like a dog, you'd do it without thinking twice. Duan Qiyu drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, eyes narrowing, voice cool. You're in any position to laugh at me. The great He of Hong Kong, using a sting operation on your own. Stop, stop. Brother Duan, I was wrong. Don't bring up Nian Nian, and we're still good. Duan Qiyu gave a cold snort. Shun Henian let out a light scoff. Whatever. Find out I'll handle your brother. The next morning, when Duan Jingming pulled into the company parking lot, a group of masked men rushed out with wooden bats. Without a word, they knocked him down and started swinging that if you looked closely, they worked like pros. They only hit non-lethal spots, didn't linger, and vanished as fast as they'd appeared. Duan Jingming lay on the ground, aching everywhere to the hospital. The exam showed no broken bones, just surface bruises, but his whole body was black and blue. Anyway, he turned pulled at the injuries, making him wince. Whoever did this, he'd find them. 2 days later, when Li heard about Duan Jingming's beating during a call with the Duan family elders, she was startled. This hadn't happened in her past life. But once she learned it was only skin deep and he'd be out of the hospital in a week, she breathed easier. The guy was insufferable now, but she didn't want anything serious to happen to him. And it wasn't. She pushed the thought aside. Before she knew it, Su Nian's overseas training had ended, and she was flying back today. 8 p.m., Beijing International Airport. Two pretty girls threw themselves into an excited hug. Li Bao, I'm back. Did you miss me? Did you? I did. Wen Li drew out the syllable. After they broke apart, Wen Li asked, what's the plan? Home to rest, or go out and party? Party, of course. Su Nian wore a ballet-inspired outfit, her round eyes sparkling. Seeing how hyped she was, Wen Li figured she didn't need rest, as the eldest daughter of the Su family in Beijing. Her mother was a Shun from Hong Kong. Su Nian traveled with assistants and bodyguards even abroad. Luggage was no concern. They climbed into the Su family's private car and headed straight for her destination, Candlelight Bar. Neon lights swept past the windows. Su Nian hooked her arm through Wen Li's and leaned on her shoulder. Her earlier excitement faded. The secret she'd been holding in was pushing her to finally confess. She tested the waters carefully. Li Bao. Actually, we're not going to party, we're going to tail someone. Shenhenian? Wen Li said softly. Whoa, how did you know? Su Nian sat up straight, her round eyes wide with shock, her voice cracking. Wen Li smiled. We've known each other since high school. You rarely talk about him, but I've always had a pretty good guess about how you feel. Su Nian bit her lip, then leaned back in and whispered close to Wen Li's ear. Since you know, what do you think? Do you think I'm way out of line? Su Nian considered Wen Li her best friend, but she'd never shared this biggest secret. Not because she didn't want to. She was scared Wen Li would look at her differently. She didn't care what strangers thought, but she couldn't stand disapproval from someone she loved. Wen Li understood that fear. That's why, once she'd pieced together Su Nian's secret, she'd kept quiet. Now that Su Nian was ready to open up, she could finally offer her honest thoughts. I don't think you're out of line. I think you're brave. Really? Wen Li held her gaze. Shenhenian is your little uncle, but you two aren't blood relatives. He's a great guy, that it's natural to fall for him. The weight in Su Nian's chest dissolved. Her tense body relaxed, and her face lit up with the pure joy of being understood. Li Bao, thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. What for? You put way too much pressure on yourself. Wen Li was good at reassuring others, but she was just as hard on herself. She made a mental note that Su Nian grinned, her cute little canines peeking out. She was ready to spill everything. Let me tell you, Li Bao, I'm still in the pursuit phase. That I won't work on my mom's opinion until Shenhenian agrees to be with me. You have no idea. The Shen family adopted him when he was little. My mom legit treats him like a little brother. I can't even imagine what she'd do if she found out. She might slap me across the face. Wen Li reached over and pinched her round cheek. Don't worry. Your mom won't. She'll be angry at first, but once she sees you two truly love each other, she'll come around. She wasn't just saying that to comfort Su Nian to in her past life. That was exactly what happened to in the second half of the year after she married Duan Jingming. Su Nian and Shenhenian got married, and for the 4 years until their car accident, the couple was happy. Li Bao, you really know how to cheer me up, and no matter what the future holds, I'm taking this little promise and running with it. They smiled at each other. Wen Li asked, so, what's the plan tonight? Su Nian's eyes sharpened. Okay, listen. Tonight is my little uncle's college tennis club reunion. His ex-girlfriend was in the same club. She'll definitely be there. She's a big-shot lawyer now. Super sophisticated and sexy. Way more feminine than me. That I have to go keep an eye on them. Rekindling old flames on my watch. When she heard it was a tennis club reunion, Wen Li's eyes flickered. She pulled out her phone and texted Duan Qiyu. Any plans tonight? The reply came fast. College club reunion. Just got a Candlelight Bar. Wanna come? Wen Li turned the screen to show Su Nian. Qiyu is in the same club as your little uncle. It suddenly clicked. Duan Qiyu had studied physics at Jingda, Shenhenian finance. When Duan Jingming first enrolled and joined the tennis club, Shenhenian was a senior and Duan Qiyu a junior. By the time Jingming joined, though, the upperclassmen had stopped coming around, especially Qiyu and Henian, who were already busy running their businesses. Su Nian's eyes lit up like light bulbs when she saw the message. Reply fast. Tell him you'll come. Haha. I was just worried I didn't have a decent excuse to show up. Now Shenhenian can't say I'm stalking him. Wen Li smiled and typed back. On my way. You're leaving? Jiang Wantong's voice came out softer than she meant. Duan Jingming slid his car keys from his pocket, the metal still cool against his fingers. I just got out of the hospital today. My injuries aren't fully healed yet. He forced a steady breath. Let me stay and take care of you tonight. But the worry in Jiang Wantong's eyes didn't fade, so he made himself explain. There's a college tennis club thing tonight. Shun Henian's supposed to be there. I'm hoping he can help me figure out who jumped me. A whole week in the hospital, every favor he could call in, and still nothing. Those bastards vanished like they'd never existed, getting beaten half to death for no reason. How was he supposed to let that go? Jiang Wantong knew the name Shun Henian, but they'd all been at Jing University together. Same year, by the time she and Duan Jingming were freshmen, Shun Henian was a graduating senior. But he'd always held a spot in the top 3 hottest guys on campus. Number 1, no surprise, was Duan Qiyu. She couldn't stop herself. Why not ask your brother for help? Duan Jingming's hand froze over his keys that he shoved them deep into his pocket and let out a cold snort. Don't want to. He knew, logically, there was nothing between Duan Qiyu and Wen Li. But he still couldn't get that night at the theater out of his head. Wen Li's face lit up like a flower, their heads bent together, whispering that it sat in his chest like a stone. Even if the other guy was his own brother, the resentment was there in his mind. His relationship with Wen Li was only on pause. 3 years. Then he'd still marry her. Jiang Wantong read the dark look on his face and chose not to push. Still, a private thought flickered. Maybe all of this was because of her. Last time at the theater, Duan Qiyu had been cold toward her, and Duan Jingming had argued with him directly. The memory lifted her mood. She fell back on her usual move. Jingming, can I come with you? If it's not a good time, it's fine. Go get changed. He cut her off before she could finish. The top-floor private room at Candlefire Bar was already crowded by the time Shun Henian pulled strings to reserve the entire floor. 8 or 9 people had gathered, drinks in hand. Duan Qiyu sat alone in a single armchair. Shun Henian perched to his side and slightly forward, with a sharp-dressed woman beside him. Short hair, gray knit bodycon dress with long straps, red bottom heels that a laptop balanced on her crossed legs, her bright red nails tapping a steady rhythm on the keys. The other women in the room stole glances at the 2 men, but she never looked up from the screen. She looked like she was drafting a legal brief for a death penalty case. Shun Henian leaned over to glimpse her monitor and laughed. Seriously, did you come here to party or to work? Even a busy lawyer clocks out. You though? Lin Weinuang didn't miss a keystroke. TCH, you wouldn't get it. Yeah, I don't get it. But busy? Busier than Duan Qiyu? Look at him. He's been parked there all night without a single work call. Lin Weinuang's fingers paused. She lifted her gaze to Duan Qiyu. Hey, Lao Duan, something's way off. What don't I know? Spill it. She snapped the laptop shut and set it aside, a spark of gossip lighting her eyes. Duan Qiyu's cold gaze slid toward her. Better worry about how you're going to help Grandpa Shinak later. Her grin vanished instantly. She spun on Shun Henian. Shun Henian, you dog. Sun Yin's been out of school over a year, and you're still stringing her along. So that's why you begged me to be here tonight. You set me up. Shun Henian smiled like a sly fox, the gold-rimmed glasses only sharpening the wolf in sheep's clothing effect. Don't be mad. Our iron triangle hasn't hung out in forever. It's mostly just catching up, and yes, I'll be troubling Attorney Lin to help me put on one more show. He poured her a drink and handed it over with an apologetic tilt of his head. Lin Weinuang rolled her eyes, but took the glass, downing a sip. Her tone softened. Find out, I'll play along. But you'd better know your limits if Sun Yin actually runs away for good. I want to watch you cry. I've got it under control. Shun Henian lifted his chin, Her gaze drifted to the man scrolling through his phone, a world apart from the noise. Hey, Lao Duan, did you fall in love? Shun Henian jumped in before Duan Qiyu could speak. Now that's a lawyer's eye, spot on. Lin Weinuang preened, humming. Tell me about her. Who is she? Do I know her? Wen Li. Duan Qiyu's lips curved upward before he could stop them. What? Lin Weinuang's mouth fell open. You stole your own brother's girl? That's not something the honorable Duan Qiyu would do. His expression darkened. Honor didn't factor into it. Before, he'd held back because he didn't want Wen Li to get hurt if she loved his brother and he forced them apart. He'd never have her real happiness, only her hatred. Lin Weinuang knew there had to be more. Duan Qiyu was a man of few words, so she turned to Shun Henian. What's actually going on? Shun Henian shot a glance at Duan Qiyu, who gave a slight nod that he leaned in, voice teasing. Duan Jingming got caught cheating. Qiyu saw his chance and took it. Lin Weinuang's eyes went cold. She let out a sharp breath. That kid never looked reliable. That I actually thought he'd be different with Wen Li. But turns out men really can't keep it in their pants. Both Shun Henian and Duan Qiyu leveled a hard look at her. Shun Henian grumbled. If you're gonna trash him, leave the rest of us out of it. Qiyu and I are perfectly chaste. She pursed her lips, but didn't argue. They really were. With faces straight out of a boy band. They'd never touched any of the women who threw themselves at them. Since they were kids, each had carried someone in his heart, someone out of reach. They'd held on like that ever since that it was unsettling self-control. If it were her, no way she could keep that kind of line. Loving someone who's right there, yet acting cold every single day, torture. She was about to ask who Duan Jingming had cheated with when the door swung open that a server walked straight to Duan. Qiyu. Mr. Duan, a Miss Wen is here with a friend that she's looking for you. Duan Qiyu's eyes lit. Show her in. Wen Li had put thought into tonight. Picking up her best friend after good news felt like its own kind of celebration. And when her mood was high, she actually wanted to dress up. She'd chosen a French-style fitted dress that pulled in at the waist, soft misty purple, with delicate lace. Elegant, and just a little alluring. The long hem gave it a refined edge. Walking beside her, Sun Yin rocked a cute ballet-inspired mini-skirt. They couldn't have looked more different, but both turned heads. Following the staff, they reached the private room door. Sun Yin stopped dead. Li Bao, I'm nervous. Her voice had a tiny tremor. Last time, right before I left the country, my little uncle shut me down again, that I'm scared I'll walk in and he'll already be back with his ex. Wen Li grabbed her hand and squeezed. Don't worry, he won't. Yeah, he won't. Sun Yin let out a shaky breath and straightened her shoulders. Okay, let's go. Wen Li led her through the door. 8 or 9 pairs of eyes turned toward them at once. The tennis club members exchanged looks, uncertain. Nobody recognized these two women. Sure, everyone here was from Jingdai University, but Wen Li and Sun Yin had just come from the neighboring Jingyi Art Institute. Before anyone could ask who they were looking for, Duan Qiyu was already on his feet, closing the distance in a few long strides. Sun Yin released Wen Li's hand without being asked, and gave him a casual nod. Hey, Qiyu. He acknowledged her with a brief nod of his own. Duan Qiyu didn't know if Wen Li was ready to go public yet, so he kept his hands to himself, his fist clenching at his side instead. You, Wen Li said, her voice soft. It snapped him out of his hesitation. Oh, eat yet? Not yet. Go sit. I'll get you two some snacks. The three of them moved toward the sofas. Duan Qiyu guided Wen Li to the long couch next to his single armchair. Sun Yin settled in right beside her. Across the oval seating arrangement sat Shun Henian and Lin Weinuang. Shun Henian, what are you doing here? Sun Yin rarely called him uncle in public anymore. She made a point of downplaying their connection, so his full name was her go-to. What do you think? The second you got back from overseas, you started tailing me. Shun Henian's fox-like eyes lifted with amusement. Lin Weinuang quietly rolled her eyes at his mock seriousness. Who's tailing you? Sun Yin pursed her lips. I came with Li. Shun Henian let out a soft laugh and let it drop. But Sun Yin's gaze shifted to Lin Weinuang. Hey Nguyen. Long time no see. Nian, you look even more beautiful. Pleased that you're still the gorgeous one. All right, enough with the mutual admiration society. Shun Henian cut in and snapped his fingers. The server stepped forward at once. Boss? Bring some snacks. Right away. The server left the private room. In the neighboring area, the other tennis club members kept drinking and laughing, their noise bleeding over and making the awkward silence in this corner even more obvious. Everyone had something on their mind that it only hit Wen Li once she sat down that she and Duan Qiyu were still keeping their relationship under wraps. She had no idea if he'd told his friends about them. And her own words from the car, the ones she'd used to reassure Sun Yan, were still echoing in her head. Part of her hope, Duan Qiyu had already told his friends that it would save her the mental gymnastics. But the rational side of her didn't want that at all. Everyone here was tight with the Jingda tennis crowd, and they all knew Duan Jingming that if word got back to him, he'd absolutely blow things up again. Right now, Wen Li didn't have the courage to deal with the fallout between the two brothers. She gave herself a quiet deadline. The moment Duan Jingming and Jiang Wantong were officially married, whether she had fully sorted out her own feelings for you or not, she would go public. Keeping him a secret wasn't fair. He was too good for that. He deserved to be treated right. Wen Li pulled out her phone and sent Duan Qiyu a tiny heart emoji. Duan Qiyu read it, and the corner of his mouth curved. He leaned forward, grabbed the jug of fruit tea from the table, poured a cup, and handed it to her. Thanks. She reached for it as his fingers pulled away. His pinky dragged lightly across her palm at a deliberate, unexpected tickle that made her heart stutter. They kept up their quiet flirtation like it was the most natural thing in the world. Across the room, Sun Yin shot Shun Henian a sharp look. Some silent message passed between them, and then Shun Henian stood and headed for the private bathroom that Sun Yin followed. Lin Weinuang watched the whole thing and shook her head. She had them figured out now. Duan Qiyu was the cold, possessive type. Shun Henian was the shameless flirt. The door to the private room swung open again. Wen Li turned to look and her face went still. Jiang Wantong, wearing a soft cream dress, was hanging on to Duan Jingming's arm as they walked in. The moment Duan Jingming spotted Wen Li, his breath caught that he strode over. What are you doing here? Did my brother bring you? His words were aimed directly at her. Jiang Wantong, left scrambling behind him, hurried to catch up and shot Wen Li a venomous glare. Wen Li's expression cooled. Who I came with is none of your business. Can you just talk to me like a normal person? Duan Jingming frowned. She ignored him and took another sip of her fruit tea. Duan Jingming ground his back teeth and turned to Duan Qiyu, lowering his voice. Brother, what are you doing here? Duan Qiyu lifted his gaze, eyes sharp. Came to see Henian. Looking for me? Shun Henian stepped out of the bathroom. Behind him, Sun Yan's cheeks were flushed pink. Duan Jingming's glance flicked to Sun Yan, and the knot in his chest loosened instantly. That of course, I must have come with Sun Yan. His mood lifted, and he spoke to Shun Henian. I need a favor. Let's hear it. Shun Henian dropped back onto the sofa. A group of guys jumped me last week. I need you to figure out who sent them. Shun Henian toyed with the lighter in his hand, his gaze cutting briefly to Duan Qiyu before a lazy smile spread across his face. You're Qiyu's brother. That of course I'll handle it. Duan Jingming gave a polite nod. Huh. A cold laugh cut through the room. Sun Yin had settled back beside Wen Li, and her voice rang out sharp and clear. Some people have it coming. Getting jumped is just karma. Nian. Shun Henian said her name in a tone that wasn't quite a scolding, wasn't quite gentle. Sun Yin just pulled at the corner of her mouth and said nothing. Duan Jingming pressed his tongue against his cheek, his eyes icing over. Lin Weinuang broke the silence. She studied Jiang Wantong with a measured look. Junior, long time. Lin, it's so good to see you again. Everyone looked up, caught off guard that the two knew each other. Back in school, Jiang Wantong had gotten her period once and stained her skirt. Lin Weinuang had been the one to notice, shielding her the whole walk back to the dorm. To Lin Weinuang. Jiang Wantong was a sweet, gentle girl. To Jiang Wantong. Lin Weinuang was a warm-hearted, fiercely loyal rich girl. Great family, beautiful, top grades. One of the most well-known faces at Jingda. After graduation, Jiang Wantong had tried a few angles to get closer to Lin Weinuang, but it was nearly impossible. They weren't in the same year or department, and Lin Weinuang's circle was exclusive at BY College. She was already interning at one of the top 3 firms in the capital. There was never a way in. Lin Weinuang's gaze stayed on Jiang Wantong. Remembering what Shin Henian had told her about Duan Jingming's cheating, she asked bluntly, "What exactly is your relationship with Duan Air?" Jiang Wantong gave a soft smile. "We're together now, but next month, we're getting married." Duan Jingming's expression shifted fast. His eyes darted to Wen Li, but she was perfectly composed, completely unfazed. Did she really not feel even a flicker of jealousy? "Li, are you just that good at pretending? Or have you actually stopped caring?" It had to be the first one that he crushed the second thought before it could take root. Lin Weinuang let her gaze sweep between the two of them, and a faint, contemptuous hum escaped her lips. She had thought this one was different. Clearly, she read her wrong. Lin Weinuang didn't bother hiding her disgust, and it sliced right through Jiang Wantong's fragile pride. Jiang Wantong clenched her fists at her sides, forcing her smile to stay in place. Once she was officially the Duan family's second young mistress, even Lin Weinuang wouldn't dare throw attitude at her. The other group nearby had no clue about the tension crackling in this corner. They crowded over, buzzing with energy, until one of them made a suggestion. "With this many gorgeous people in one room, we need a game to liven things up." Sun Yin jumped in first. "Yes, let's do it." "Li, you're in, right?" Wen Li glanced over at Duan Qiyu, then smiled and nodded. Once the two girls agreed, Duan Qiyu and Shun Henian were in too. Lin Weinuang figured she still had to help Shin Henian sell his act tonight, so when he said yes, she followed his lead. Duan Jingming saw his brother and Wen Li both playing, and immediately said he was in. Jiang Wantong rushed to join right after a dozen people shuffled their seats. Fortunately, the seating area was large enough to fit over a dozen people comfortably. Someone chimed in. "First game has to be the classic truth or dare. We spin the bottle. Whoever it lands on picks. And the person who draws the joker asks the question." The game kicked off. The bottle spun and stopped on Jiang Wantong. The guy holding the joker looked thrilled. "Truth or dare?" "Truth." "How many boyfriends have you had?" Jiang Wantong's eyes flickered. "One." Duan Jingming wasn't surprised at all. Back in college, before they started dating, she'd told him he was her first love, and during all those years they were apart, she was still in love with him. She never dated anyone else. The game continued. The bottle landed on Duan Qiyu. The joker went to Sun Yin. "Truth or dare?" "Truth." Sun Yin's eyes lit up. "How old were you when you had your first kiss?" 21. He answered without a second of hesitation. Wen Li was holding a handful of nuts. One slipped through her fingers and bounced onto the floor. She stared down at it, a tightness spreading through her chest. Duan Qiyu had dated before. Then why had he lied to her? He'd said he wanted to give his whole heart and body to his future wife, and that she needed to take responsibility, unless his first kiss wasn't with a person. Maybe some kind of little animal? Yeah, that had to be it. Duan Qiyu had no reason to trick her. The game rolled on. This time the bottle pointed at Duan Jingming. Sun Yin drew the joker again. She kept her expression flat. Pick. Truth. Sun Yin couldn't care less about this guy, so she tossed out a lazy question. Same as your brother. Duan Jingming's gaze slid toward Wen Li. 22. Last year, when he and Wen Li officially got together. All the years they'd known each other before that, physical contact had never gone beyond holding hands, hugs, and a goodnight kiss on the forehead. Wen Li's head snapped up. She stared at Duan Jingming, her brows pulling together, her eyes frozen in a way. How could their first kiss have been last year? It happened when they were 18th, the night of their senior year coming-of-age ceremony. Had he seriously forgotten? Right. After they died and came back, everything from before felt even more distant. And now, with his mind tangled up over Jiang Wanton, how could he possibly remember what they'd shared? When Li's lips curled into a sneer, Duan Jingming missed the sarcasm completely. He thought she was remembering that beautiful moment from last year too. That a rush of hope surged through him. She still loved him, and no matter how much they fought, those good memories were still there. The game moved on fast. And one caught the dark look in Duan Qiyu's eyes from the single sofa. After hearing his younger brother's answer, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Several more rounds passed. Maybe because there were so many people, Wen Li didn't get picked once. Then someone proposed the second game, the 2-centimeter cookie stick challenge. The rules were simple. Take a deck of cards, pull out as many as there were people, then swap one for a joker. Whoever drew the joker had to pick someone else in the room to do the challenge with. The chosen person could refuse. The joker holder only got 2 attempts. If both said no, they had to down 3 drinks as a penalty. The challenge had a 60-second time limit if they didn't get the cookie stick down to 2 centimeters. Both had to drink 3 glasses. The cookie stick could be shorter than 2 centimeters, but not longer. Lin Weinuang listened and groaned. How is this any different from kissing? The guy who came up with the game grinned. Since Sister Lin brought it up, I'll add a rule. You can kiss, but you can't finish the whole cookie. If you eat it all, you both still drink 3 glasses. Any other questions? Everyone shook their heads. Someone urged, "Come on, let's get started already." The first round began. About a dozen cards were spread out on the table. Everyone reached in and grabbed one. Wen Li checked hers. Not a joker. She let out a quiet breath, but she'd barely exhaled when Sun Yin shrieked beside her, making her jump. Ah, joker! Sun Yin was practically vibrating with excitement. She couldn't have asked for a better draw. Wen Li silently cheered for her best friend. Sun Yin slapped her card onto the table and pointed straight at Shun Henian across from her. "You'd do the challenge with me." "I refuse." The man's smile was unreadable. Sun Yin's eyes went wide. "No, you can't refuse." He raised one eyebrow. "Why not?" "I recall the rules say the chosen person can refuse, and you get 2 tries. Hardly anyone in the room knew about Shun Henian and Sun Yin's relationship, and the few who did weren't the type to gossip. Sun Yin was fuming, but it only lit a bigger fire inside her. Little uncle wanted to play? Fine, that she'd see this through to the end. They'd see who chickened out first. She gave up her second pick and went straight for the penalty drinks. Second round. The joker went to a woman Wen Li didn't recognize. She seemed shy, her gaze flicking toward the man sitting alone on the single sofa. Before she spoke softly, "Duan Qiyu, could I pick you?" The strawberry in Wen Li's mouth turned sour. She glanced at Duan Qiyu without meaning to. His cold voice cut through the room. Sorry. No problem. The rejected woman chose another man instead, and he accepted happily. The two started the 2-centimeter challenge amid cheers and whoops. All eyes were locked on them. When Li's phone buzzed, Duan Qiyu. If I draw the Joker, can I pick you? Wen Li read it, then looked up at him. Their eyes met, and her heart thumped hard. There was something almost wounded in his words, the careful, tentative hope. Wen Li felt more certain than ever that his answer about the first kiss had an explanation. Duan Qiyu was a gentleman. He wouldn't have lied to her back then without a reason. She let go of the lingering doubt and texted back, okay. Across the room, the challenge ended to shouts and applause, successful. The two pulled apart, both flushed. The energy in the private room spiked. Instantly, Jiang Wanton glanced at Duan Jingming, then shot a cold look at Wen Li. She wanted to draw the Joker herself, that he'll make Wen Li watch her, and Duan Jingming get close again, right in front of her. The bigger the rift between those two, the better, the less chance they'd ever get back together. The third round began. Lin Weinuang flipped her card, and her face dropped. Speak of the devil. She slapped the Joker onto the table to keep up her act. As Shun Henian's ex-girlfriend, she nudged the man's pant leg with the tip of her shoe. Pick you. If you listen closely, there was a thread of disgust in her voice. Su Nian's heart clenched. She stared at Shun Henian like she'd charge over and beat him senseless if he so much as nodded. Shun Henian narrowed his eyes. No way I'm giving you a free ride. Su Nian exhaled in relief. Huh. Lin Weinuang sneered, then turned and pointed at a guy sitting in the corner. You. The guy still hadn't processed what was happening, but every pair of eyes was on him. He looked flattered. Me, senior? He asked, uncertain. Wen Li glanced over. He wasn't very tall, maybe a little over 5'7", with a clean, boyish look. His clothes were simple, but fit well that he gave off a warm, approachable vibe. Lin Weinuang's voice went flat. Yeah, you Qiao Zhou. Senior knows my name. His face lit up. Lin Weinuang was out of patience. Less talking. You playing or not? Yes, playing. Lin Weinuang grabbed a cookie stick and walked over. Everyone quickly made space. They each took one end of the stick between their teeth. When the timer started, they began eating. They made fast work of most of it. Facing the 2-centimeter mark, they had no choice but to get closer to 5 centimeters. The guy shyly closed his eyes, too nervous to bite any further. Lin Weinuang kept going, biting down to 3 centimeters to finish the game. Damn, Senior Lin is aggressive. Huh. Our eyes are blessed tonight. Qiao Zhou is so lucky. The third round ended. The room's energy was at its peak. Over the next 3 rounds, every Joker went to someone Wen Li didn't know. 7th round. The Joker landed in her own hand. Wen Li, you got it. Su Nian gasped. In an instant, several sharp gazes shot toward Wen Li. Duan Jingming looked at her with hopeful eyes. Duan Qiyu's hand tightened around his glass. Then he set it down casually. His body, slouched into the sofa, straightened slightly. Shun Henian crossed his legs, ready for the drama. Lin Weinuang's eyes swept over the eager Duan Jingming, her lips curling with mockery. Eyes on the prize in his own bowl, but still staring at someone else's plate. Jiang Wanton dug her nails into her palm. Her expression strained. Don't pick Jingming. Don't pick Jingming. Don't. Su Nian's big eyes darted around, trying to guess whether her best friend would pick someone or take the penalty. She and Duan Qiyu were still a secret. Wen Li set the Joker down, drew a breath, and looked at the person in the single sofa. Duan Qiyu. Li. A sharp, cold voice cut her off. Duan Jingming's eyes were full of warning, his tone a straight threat. Think very carefully before you choose. The threat might have worked on someone else, but it only made Wen Li more stubborn. Sooner or later, Duan Jingming would find out about her and Duan Qiyu. He might as well get used to seeing them close now. She ignored him completely, looked straight at Duan Qiyu, and said, her voice clear and steady, "Brother Yu, I pick you." Every person in the room turned toward Duan Qiyu. Only Shen Henian, Lin Weinuang, and Su Nian knew he wouldn't refuse. Everyone else expected him to. Duan Qiyu had never been linked to anyone. No rumors, no girlfriend, nothing. Watching Wen Li insist on choosing his brother, Duan Jingming's anger flared, but he held on to one belief: his brother would turn her down. Duan Qiyu didn't play these games. Okay. That single word sent a silent shockwave through the private room. Duan Jingming's eyes narrowed. His blood ran cold, but a chill crept up his spine until even his fingertips trembled. He swallowed hard, unable to make a sound. How was this even possible? Wen Li picked up the cookie stick from the table and walked over to Duan Qiyu. The person timing them spoke up. "Get ready. Once you're set, I'll start the countdown." Duan Qiyu lifted his dark lashes to meet her gaze. "Do you want me to lead, or should I just follow?" Wen Li bit her lip. "Follow. All right." She leaned in slowly. Across the room, Duan Jingming snapped out of his shock, fury blazing in his eyes as he started to get up. Jiang Wantong grabbed his arm. "Jingming, my chest hurts." He frowned down at her. Her face was twisted in pain, her gaze soft and pleading, asking him silently to stay put. He turned back to watch Wen Li about to bite the cookie stick, his agitation hitting a peak. Why was she forcing him to choose like this? The emotions surged, then settled into something strangely calm that he steadied himself. Even if Wen Li chose Duan Qiyu, it didn't mean she had feelings for him. It was just a game. She was trying to get back at him. His brother was basically a prop. Duan Qiyu had only agreed so she wouldn't be embarrassed in front of everyone that he knew them both. There was no spark here. Duan Jingming clenched his fist and forced the impulse down. His gaze turned cold and locked onto the single sofa across the room. Over by that sofa, Wen Li leaned in and offered the cookie stick. Duan Qiyu's long fingers closed around the other end. Her breath caught, under everyone's eyes, with Duan Jingming staring. The boldness that had surged through her moments ago began to fade like a retreating tide. "Don't be scared." His voice was cool but softer now that he suggested, "Let's switch positions." Her heart warmed. Okay. They swapped places. Duan Qiyu braced one hand on the sofa and leaned down until his eyes were level with hers. "All you have to do is bite down. Leave the rest to me." Okay. She trusted him completely. He held the cookie stick between them. Wen Li obediently opened her mouth and bit one end. He took the other end between his lips. Beneath the warm glow of the crystal chandelier, his whole body seemed to catch the light. That perfect face was only inches away. Wen Li's breathing slowed. Her bones felt like jelly. The timer called out, 60 seconds, starting now. The moment the count began, Duan Qiyu pressed both hands against the sofa and moved toward her, slow and steady. He came closer. She kept her eyes open, watching him. His dark eyes narrowed, deep as an ocean. She was a sailor drowning in those waves, rising and falling, gasping for air. Every second stretched into forever. Everything else around them vanished. Until the sweet scent of wine reached her, he stopped just a couple centimeters from her lips. Wen Li snapped back to reality with a jolt. She had bitten off about a centimeter of the cookie stick. To finish the challenge, he would have to touch her mouth. Her body went rigid. She froze, not daring to move. Half the time was already gone. He paused only a second, then reached up and cupped the back of her neck, leaning in that moment. They moved in perfect sync. Wen Li tilted her head and parted her lips as wide as she could. The next second, the cool scent of sandalwood filled her nose. Her lips brushed against something cold, and then it was gone. She stayed frozen in place, his hand slid from her neck to just in front of her teeth. His thumb brushed over her lower lip. His voice came out husky. "Open." She obeyed without thinking, letting him take the tiny bit of cookie from her mouth. He held the piece in his palm and showed it to the room. Duan Jingming's eyes were rimmed with red as he glanced at it. His heart nearly stopped. Jiang Wantong called his name several times, but he didn't hear a single word. His gaze was fixed on Wen Li, sharp enough to drill 2 holes through her. Wen Li barely registered anyone else in the room. Her heart pounded. Her legs had gone weak. Her mind replayed every intimate moment she had ever shared with Duan Qiyu. She got through the next few rounds on autopilot, eyes down, refusing to look at anyone. Soon the party wound down and people started leaving. Soon Yin grabbed Shen Henian by the sleeve and dragged him out fast, as if afraid he would run off with his so-called ex-girlfriend the second she let go. Lin Weinuang picked up her laptop bag. Xiao Zhou stepped forward, a little awkward. "Senior, can I walk you out?" She smiled, red lips curving. Her gaze flicked over his boyish face. Without a word, she handed him the bag. His eyes lit up and he took it. They left together. Wen Li and Duan Qiyu were heading for the door when someone grabbed her wrist. "Ali, come with me." Duan Jingming had held back all night, but he couldn't anymore. He needed to talk to her alone. He started to pull her away, but a hand stopped his arm cold. "Let go." Duan Qiyu's voice was ice. Wen Li looked up at him. His jaw was sharp, his expression ruthlessly aloof, but he hadn't grabbed her wrist. He had seized Duan Jingming's arm instead. Warmth spread through her chest. Then Duan Jingming's voice cut in. "Ali, are you coming with me, or with my brother?" He knew he couldn't match his brother in a physical fight, so he put the choice to her directly. He released her. Duan Qiyu did the same. Wen Li looked at Duan Jingming, then at Jiang Wantong standing behind him with a dark expression. Her tone was flat. "How long are you going to drag this out? If you want to be with Jiang Wantong, then treat her right. Leave me out of it. Let's go, brother you." She looped her arm through Duan Qiyu's, but Duan Jingming grabbed her other wrist. "Ali," his voice softened, almost pleading. "Even if we're nothing now, I'm still your second brother. We grew up together. Can't I even have 5 minutes alone with you?" His strategy of backing down to get closer had a small effect. Wen Li's grip on Duan Qiyu's arm tightened. Her hands and feet went cold. Duan Qiyu's throat turned dry. Across the table, Duan Jingming's gaze was nearly desperate. Beside him, Jiang Wantong's nails dug into her palms. The air thickened. All 3 held their breath, waiting for Wen Li's answer. 3 seconds stretched into an eternity. Without turning her head, Wen Li said, "Come talk to me about sentiment when you've let go of your obsession." She slid her grip from his arm to his hand, threaded her fingers through Duan Qiyu's, and walked out of the private room. The door slammed shut. The sound hit Duan Jingming square in the chest. For the first time, he understood Ali wasn't just throwing a tantrum. She was drawing a hard line between them. Jiang Wantong exhaled in relief and stepped closer. "Jingming." One look at his face, and she froze. His eyes were murderous. She swallowed, gathered her courage. "Jingming, Wen Li threw your feelings away. She doesn't love you. I love you. Give me a real chance." He dragged a bloodshot glare over her. His words came out ice. "The 3-year agreement was my pity, greed for more, and I'll tear it up." "No." She threw her arms around him. "I won't say that again. 3 years is fine. I'll take it. I'll do anything to be with you." Wen Li had already figured out that 3-year deal the night she caught Duan Jingming cheating. It took 2 to tango. as long as they didn't drag her into it. But clearly, neither of them had that kind of sense. Walking out of the club, she shoved the whole mess out of her mind. She let go of Duan Qiyu's hand and spoke as they moved. "Brother Yu, can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead. Do you like animals?" "That's personal." He raised an eyebrow but answered anyway. "Not really, that don't hate them either." "Oh, 2 syllables. Neutral." Wen Li nodded. That fit him. But if he was neutral about animals, what were the odds his first kiss was with one? Pretty much 0, but she kept turning it over as they left the bar and headed for the parking lot. When the open sky came into view, something pushed her to ask again. "Was your first kiss with a woman, brother Yu?" His low, cold voice rode the summer breeze. "Yes." Wen Li stopped dead. Her eyes frosted over. "You lied to me?" Duan Jingming's betrayal had left a permanent scar across her heart. It made her hold back with Duan Qiyu. Second-guess everything. Tiptoe around her own feelings. She'd trusted this man, the one she relied on most right now. And he'd lied to her from the start. If it weren't for his old-fashioned insistence that she take responsibility, they never would have become lovers with marriage as the goal. It wasn't the kiss itself. It wasn't whether he had an ex. It was the lie that she'd bought it completely. She let herself feel things, tossed, and turned over it. And now she felt played. Was this fun for him? Duan Qiyu's heart lurched. Panic. Real, raw panic. Hit him for the first time in his life. "Don't be mad. There's a misunderstanding." He stepped forward to take her hand. She stepped back. His hand hung in the air. The chill seeped straight into his chest. Back then, he'd kept the truth quiet because he didn't want to hurt things between her and his brother. And because he was afraid she'd hate him. That if he told her now, everything she'd thought of him all these years would collapse. If he didn't, this, whatever this was, would shatter right here. He didn't regret what he'd done. But he had to face the consequences. After a long internal war, he sighed and dropped his hand. "Get in the car. I'll explain everything." Wen Li swallowed her anger and got in. The door clicked shut, in the closed space. Time seemed to stall. Before she could speak, Duan Qiyu started, his voice slow. "My first kiss was with a woman. That part is true." Her fingers tightened on her bag. He kept going. "I also told you the truth when I said I was old-fashioned, that I'd only give my body and heart to my future wife." She frowned. "That's contradictory." He turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. What if they're the same person? Wen Li froze. Her mind raced, piecing together facts from the truth or dare game. Duan Jingming's first kiss was last year, at 22, the day he started dating her. Duan Qiyu's was at 21, 5 years ago. Her first kiss was at 18. Also 5 years ago. If they were both telling the truth, then back then, the one with her. No, that couldn't be. Duan Qiyu read her face. "I think you already know the answer. Yes, it was me that night in the greenhouse." Her pupils dilated. Shock gave way to a dazed emptiness, as if the whole world hit pause. Memory pulled her back to the sweltering summer 5 years ago, her 18th birthday. Kyoto No. 1 High School held an adult ceremony for all seniors. Wen Li wore a sky-blue cropped blazer with a white pleated skirt, clean sneakers, and milk-white knee-high socks. Youth personified. When the event ended, she snuck back to the classroom and slipped a pink sticky note into Duan Jingming's math competition test. Papered out on the back, she taped a brand new 1-inch photo of herself. 9 o'clock. The greenhouse. "I have a surprise for you." A girl's heart in spring. She wanted to give her first kiss to her childhood friend, surrounded by flowers. On this special day. A sweet, ceremonial memory for her youth. That test paper was his homework for the night. He'd see it when he got home. After dinner, she made sure to stay over at the Duan residence. At 8:30, she went to the greenhouse to wait, inside the glass. Greenhouse, Warm amber string lights glowed. She still wore her ceremony outfit. She sat on the small love seat, gazing up at the moon through the glass. Tonight the moon was bright, a girl's secret, impossible to hide. She fidgeted. The closer 9 o'clock came, the more nervous she got. Taking a deep breath, she was glad she'd sneaked half a bottle of red wine out. Liquid courage. She knew she couldn't hold her liquor, so she only drank a little, just enough to stay calm for what was coming. She hadn't brought her phone, only her watch. When the hour hand hit 9 exactly, the greenhouse lights went out. A short circuit. Before she could work it out, she saw a tall, lean silhouette enter through the doorway, outlined by the cold moonlight streaming through the glass roof. "Brother, is that you?" The man had answered, but then again, he hadn't. From this distance, Wen Li couldn't tell which it was, so she hurried toward him. Maybe it was the wine giving her courage. A few steps in, she broke into a light jog, ready to throw herself into his arms for a full-on hug. She planned to kiss him tonight. A little physical contact first would make things less awkward. Wen Li grinned as she ran, launching herself straight into his chest. He seemed startled. His body stiffened for a split second, but then he caught her, lifting her easily. Her feet left the ground. She didn't notice this version of Duan Jingming was taller than usual. She was too tangled up in nerves and excitement to register that. He held her steady. Wen Li wrapped her legs around his waist and her arms around his shoulders, her hands clasped at the back of his neck. She had never been this bold. Her cheek pressed against his, and the embarrassment hit like a delayed wave. She tried to pull back, to slide down, but his palm moved to the back of her head and pressed her closer, holding her tighter. There wasn't a single gap between them. Wen Li's face burned. Second brother, The sound came from deep in his throat. Her cheeks were on fire, her mind buzzing, her heart trying to punch its way out of her chest. She curled into him, too shy to think straight. She didn't even notice how much deeper and more magnetic his voice sounded than usual. Her brain was a mess of questions. What now? Just go for the kiss? Or ask if he wants to be kissed first? God, so this is what it feels like to make a move on someone you already know. 800 voices were screaming in her head. Then suddenly, he pulled one hand away and handed her a black blindfold. Put this on. Wen Li froze, but she took it on instinct and pulled it over her eyes. The 800 voices went silent. The whole world went quiet. It felt like only the two of them existed. He guessed I was going to try to kiss him tonight, that I'd get nervous and chicken out. So he brought a blindfold. She never expected him, the guy who was always so carefree and a little wild, to be this attentive. A sweet little surprise. A warm, sugary feeling spread through Wen Li's chest. Then his fingertips touched her lips. Open. She did, and he placed a peach-flavored hard candy on her tongue. Wen Li froze. Okay. This is ridiculously thoughtful. She had brushed her teeth carefully in her room, but it never occurred to her to bring candy. Second brother was being so sweet tonight. He'd guessed what she was planning. He'd brought a blindfold to save her the embarrassment. And now he'd even prepped a candy to make their first kiss taste better. Her favorite flavor, too. Wen Li sucked on the candy, feeling like she was swimming in honey. With everything he'd done to set the mood, plus the darkness covering her eyes, her courage swelled. She leaned close to his ear and whispered, "You must be tired from carrying me. Let's go sit on the little sofa." He didn't answer, he just acted. Wen Li felt the gentle jostle as he carried her toward the sofa. She felt him sit down, and when she tried to slide off, he settled her onto his lap instead, his hands firm on her waist. The message was clear, stay right here. Beneath her, his thighs were solid and strong. His palms gripped her waist. His chest was warm and firm against her. And knowing he could see her, while she couldn't see his expression sent a fierce new wave of shame crashing through her. Shame was the best fuel for desire. When Li's courage soared, she reached up, cupped his face in her hands, and whispered, Can I kiss you?" This time, she left off the second brother. 3 seconds passed that he didn't answer. Was that rejection or permission? Her courage came and went in a flash. Without an answer, when Li's nerve failed, she couldn't picture his expression. She reached up to pull off the blindfold and see for herself. But before her fingers touched the fabric, her wrist was caught. The next second, the world spun. Her body hit the sofa cushions that he pinned her wrists above her head. Secco, MMPH. The moment she opened her mouth, his lips crushed hers. His kiss was fierce and urgent, like he wanted to devour her whole. The half-melted fruit candy on her tongue was swept away. He tangled with her, kissed her deep and slow, utterly consuming. Wen Li had never kissed anyone before. She didn't know how to breathe. Soon she was gasping, struggling for air. A helpless moan escaped her throat. He stopped instantly. He pulled back, and Wen Li gulped in air, pouting. "Duan Jingming, you kiss way too hard. I couldn't even braid." MMPH. Before she could finish, his mouth was on hers again, even more intense than before. She was a complete novice when it came to desire. She had no defense against a kiss like this. Her body went soft, strange new sensations flooding through her. She looped her arms around his neck, trying to kiss him back and push him down. He seemed to read her intent. He shifted, leaning back against the sofa. Wen Li straddled him and kissed him harder. She lost count of how many times they kissed that night. Eventually, the candy in her mouth was replaced by the red wine she had brought. They tasted it on each other's lips until she passed out in his arms. Wen Li woke up the next morning in her own bedroom. If not for her slightly swollen lips, last night's reckless intimacy would have felt like a dream. She went down to breakfast. Duan Jingming was already eating. He raised an eyebrow and smirked. "Wow, Princess Wen, did a mosquito bite your mouth? It's so red." Wen Li glared at him. With the Duan family elders sitting right there at the table, she silently cursed him for being such a tease. Why did he have to joke about it in front of everyone? Her lips were this red because of him. She had only wanted a single kiss. Instead, he had kissed her breathless, and later he had fed her wine mouth to mouth. Her alarm hadn't even woken her that morning. Thank God the maid had knocked. Wen Li dragged her mind back to the present. After her coming-of-age party, she'd been too embarrassed by her first taste of passion to bring it up. She had figured that since Duan Jingming had kissed her so deeply that night, they would probably do it again sometime. But he acted exactly the same as always around her. Seeing that, she felt even more awkward asking. Now that she knew the truth, it all clicked. He hadn't known any of it. The car was dead silent. Diptychs philocycos, fig, coconut milk, and cedar filled the air with its fresh, natural scent, cutting a hint of sweetness through the restless summer heat. For the past month, every time Wen Li got into Duan Qiyu's car, she felt perfectly at ease. But now it just made her irritable. She rolled the window down halfway, letting the breeze blow in a little relief. The man in the driver's seat stayed quiet, as if waiting for a verdict. After a long moment, Wen Li stared out the window and spoke, her tone cool. "How did you keep it from Duan Jingming?" Kyoto No. 1 High School. The day of the coming-of-age ceremony. Duan Qiyu's mother called that afternoon, telling him to come home for dinner. He'd planned to pull an all-nighter in the lab. But the second he heard Wen Li would be at the old house, he changed his mind. He hadn't seen her in almost 2 months. The longing had spread like weeds through all those neglected days, and he could only cage it behind walls of reason. That evening, he drove back, the dinner table. He deliberately took the seat across from her. That way, he could watch her without being obvious. But the meal was slow torture. He noticed she seemed to like his younger brother more now that in one dinner. She stole 5 glances at him, her lowered eyes holding a shyness Duan Qiyu knew too well. He'd seen that look countless times on girls who had a thing for him. After dinner, he was restless and ready to leave. Then Duan Jingming called out, "Brother, hang on. The Olympiad class slammed us with a brutal problem set today. After I finish, can you check my mistakes?" Duan Qiyu shot him a cold look, then turned and followed him into his room. Duan Jingming pulled the practice sheets from his bag. Just as he opened the door, their mother pushed her way in, phone in hand. "Jingming, come quick. Grandma wants to video chat." "Brother, wait for me." Duan Jingming jogged to the doorway. Bored, Duan Qiyu flipped through the problem set that a pink sticky note slipped out. He recognized the handwriting instantly. From the doorway, Duan Jingming wrapped up the call. Hearing his brother's footsteps, Duan Qiyu acted on impulse. He slipped the note into his pocket. He helped with the tutoring like nothing had happened, then went to his own room and unfolded the note. "Meet me in the greenhouse at 9. I have a surprise for you." Duan Qiyu replayed Wen Li's strange behavior at dinner. Then he remembered. Today was the coming-of-age ceremony. One thought seared through his mind. Was Wen Li going to confess tonight? Knowing how his brother felt about her, he'd say yes without a second thought. The idea made Duan Qiyu's chest ached. He flipped the note over. His fingers traced the 1-inch photo on the back, against the red background. The girl smiled sweetly. Those peach blossom eyes looked straight at him, focused. Deep, he carefully peeled the photo off and slid it into his wallet, like a thief, stealing something that belonged to his brother. That moment, he hadn't planned to go to the greenhouse. But as the minutes ticked by, his heart grew restless. After 9, if Wen Li didn't see his brother, she'd go find him. She'd confess. They'd end up together anyway. He knew he could block it once. Not forever. They liked each other. It was only a matter of time. But why did he have to see that note? At 8:50, Duan Qiyu couldn't take the torment any longer. He made the hardest decision of his life. Let him sabotage it. Just this once. Even if they got together later, if he didn't ruin tonight, he knew he'd regret it for the rest of his life. And there was something else. Another desire crept in. Since he was going to wreck it anyway, why not wait until after he heard her confession? He'd reveal himself. Then he lied to himself. He just wanted to briefly enjoy what should have been his brother's moment. He'd never get another chance to hear Wen Li confess her feelings to him. Duan Qiyu stuffed a blindfold into his pocket. Heading out, he spotted a bowl of candy in the living room. He picked out a peach-flavored one and pocketed it too. When Wen Li realized she'd confessed to the wrong person, he could offer her something sweet to soften the awkwardness. Ready, he left the villa and ran toward the backyard. The summer evening wind hit his face, like he was rushing to meet the one he loved. He stopped outside the greenhouse door, catching his breath. His watch read 8:59. He pulled the circuit breaker and stepped inside. That on the small sofa in the distance sat the girl he secretly loved. She let out a questioning sound. Then she spread her arms and ran straight toward him. She hugged him. A full embrace. Duan Qiyu froze, barely catching her. Even as she pressed into his arms, his brain couldn't catch up. This hug was already crossing a line that he knew he should reveal himself. But he was too greedy for this perfect moment. She was so soft, so sweet, so trusting. His iron self-control shattered to dust. When Wen Li shyly tried to pull back, he instinctively tightened his hold. That one move sealed his fate. The hug could have been excused as a misunderstanding. Now, it couldn't. The hunger ran deeper. He wanted more. Just tonight. Let him savor this stolen happiness a little longer. He pulled out the blindfold. He'd prepared and handed it to her. When she obediently put it on without a single question, his heart melted into syrup, then turned bitter. Was she really that crazy about Duan Jingming? Doing whatever he said without a second thought. Duan Qiyu took out the candy, unwrapped it one-handed, and placed it in her mouth. He heard her suck on it. He wanted to ask if she liked it, but he couldn't say much. He didn't want this dream to end. Then a peach-scented breath whispered near his ear. Second brother must be tired holding me. Let's sit on the little sofa. Duan Qiyu wanted to tell her he wasn't tired at all, but her concern still made his heart ache with sweetness. Even if it wasn't meant for him, he walked to the sofa with light steps and sat down. Just as she tried to climb off his lap, he settled her firmly on his thighs. They faced each other. The blindfold covered half her face, leaving only the tip of her nose and her full, moist lips visible. Duan Qiyu's throat tightened. His hand at her waist traced small, unconscious circles. He had to control himself. This was enough. Just being here with her. But then she reached up and cupped his cheeks, whispering, Can I kiss you? No name in the question. Duan Qiyu instinctively stepped into the role that he knew. Deep down, she was asking Duan Jingming. But right now, her hands were on his face. He wanted to say yes, desperately. But a hug and a kiss were worlds apart. If Wen Li found out, would she ever speak to him again? Duan Qiyu was trapped in agony. He couldn't bear to lose even her polite brother Qiyu. Yet saying no was impossible. The words wouldn't come. He hesitated. Wen Li reached up to pull off the blindfold. His heart jolted. Without thinking, he grabbed her wrist. The last thread of reason snapped. Let him have this. Just once. Whatever the consequences, he'd take them. He pulled her close and pressed her into the sofa, leaning down to capture that longed-for mouth. The kiss spiraled out of control. He only stopped when she struggled to breathe. Then she murmured, pouting that he'd kissed too hard, and the name she whispered, Duan Jingming. That sound ignited years of suppressed jealousy. He lost control and kissed her again. Even if it meant going to hell, he'd go willingly. Duan Qiyu hid the ugliness of what he'd done as he told her that night, keeping his voice as steady as he could manage. I planned to come clean the next day, but you never asked Duan Jingming about it. Days passed. Nothing between you changed. I was terrified that if I told you, you'd push me away completely. I buried it. I'm sorry. I was never the man you thought I was. I know what I did was despicable. If you want to break up, He couldn't finish. His throat burned. His eyes swelled. He didn't want to break up, but he wouldn't force her. His straight back bent. He pressed his forehead to the steering wheel, vision blurring, but a single tear slipped silently down, landing on his trousers in a dark spot. His breath trembled. In the passenger seat. Wen Li's eyes were red too. When she spoke, her voice cracked. What about my 1-inch photo? His voice was hoarse. In the wallet. Give it to me. Wen Li kept her voice soft, deliberately forcing it steady so no one could read her emotions. Without looking up, Duan Qiyu pulled the wallet from his pocket and handed it over. She took it and opened it. A photo of her at 18 sat in the clear plastic sleeve. She slid it out, running her fingers over the image. A chill settled in her chest. Back then, she'd given the picture to Duan Jingming with all her heart. She never imagined Duan Qiyu would keep it for so many years. Time had passed. Her sweet romance with Duan Jingming was gone. Now she was caught in a blazing relationship with Duan Qiyu. Like the universe was playing a joke on her. But Wen Li couldn't laugh. Her mind was a mess. All she wanted was to go home, be alone, and shut down her thoughts. Take me back. She handed the wallet back. Empty. The man lifted his head. His narrow phoenix eyes were misty, the neon lights outside reflecting in his dark pupils. His voice trembled, barely contained. Can you leave me that photo? I know it wasn't meant for me, but it's been with me for 5 years. Don't take it away, okay? Duan Qiyu's gaze was full of desperate, shattered longing. It felt like if she took that photo, their relationship was over. He had to keep it. Looking into his eyes, Wen Li couldn't say no. She handed it over. He let out a visible breath of relief, took it, and placed it back in the wallet. Then he leaned over to fasten her seatbelt, and stopped. They locked eyes. He dropped his gaze. I'm sorry. He pulled back, and Wen Li let out a soft, bitter laugh. What? Not even broken up yet, and I've already lost girlfriend privileges. No. I thought you hated me now. Wen Li didn't know why, but she couldn't stand seeing Duan Qiyu like this, so humbled. She knew it was because he loved her, that he was being so careful now because he was terrified of losing her, but she'd only ever seen him confident, brilliant, shining. Tonight had shattered too many of the rules in her world. She needed time to process it. Wen Li reached over and fastened her own seatbelt. I don't hate you, but I need some time to clear my head. I'll tell you when I've figured things out. Duan Qiyu's blood warmed a few degrees. Okay. The engine started, and the car pulled out of the parking lot. 40 minutes later, they stopped outside Wen Li's apartment. Get some rest, Duan Qiyu said quietly. Wen Li didn't reply. She got out without looking back and stepped into the elevator. Duan Qiyu leaned against the car door, watching her go. Only when a light flicked on high above did he slide into the driver's seat and drive away. Inside, Wen Li flipped on the light and immediately rushed to the window. She pulled the curtain aside just enough to peek out. Ever since she'd started dating Duan Qiyu, every time he dropped her off, he'd wait until she was inside before leaving. The man's tall figure leaned casually against the car door. He looked up, scanning the building. He didn't spot her. Then he got in and drove off. That a pang of wistfulness hit Wen Li. She didn't even know why she'd hurried over, ignoring him downstairs, then sneaking a look from upstairs. Love was such a complicated thing. She collapsed onto the sofa, the need to talk. Pushing her to call Sun Yan. The phone rang several times, almost going to voicemail before it was picked up. Li Bao, what's up? Sun Yan's sweet voice sounded a little strained. Wen Li was too wrapped up in her own thoughts to notice. She assumed her friend was already asleep. Did I wake you? No, go ahead. Sun Yan shot a glare at Shen Henian, signaling him to behave. The man smiled politely, but his hands weren't exactly being well behaved. Sun Yan couldn't suppress the sound. That voice. Wen Li shot upright on the sofa, face burning. Sorry. We'll talk tomorrow. Click. She hung up. Wen Li let out a breath. She never imagined the timeline between Sun Yan and Shen Henian had shifted in her past life. Shen Henian hadn't budged until next year. Tonight's gathering really had set a lot of things in motion. She also hadn't expected to finally learn the truth about back then. All these years, she'd been wrong about Duan Qiyu. After calming down, Wen Li washed up and got into bed. She pushed all the noise away and soon fell asleep. But that night, both Duan brothers lay awake. Duan Jingming sat up in bed, glanced at Jiang Wantong sleeping beside him, then slipped out to the balcony to smoke. The night sky held no moon, no stars, just a thick, ink-soaked blackness wrapping heaven and earth in a rippleless stillness. Faint lights glowed from distant buildings. Wind rustled the treetops. Insects chirped in the bushes. He lit one cigarette after another, his mind full of Wen Li, every smile, every frown, and the image of her walking away with her arm linked. Through his brothers, they looked so perfect together. It stung his eyes until they ached. He pulled out the message Chu Jing had sent him yesterday. Jingming, Annie knows you still love Xiao Li. If you want to get back with her, I have a way. He'd received that message while still in the hospital. The day after he was beaten and admitted, he deliberately had his mother call Wen Li to tell her he was in the hospital. But she never came to visit, not even after he was discharged. Not even a single concerned phone call. In the past, even a minor injury would have sent Wen Li into a panic. Duan Jingming couldn't fool himself any longer. Wen Li wasn't just playing hard to get. She wasn't coming back in 3 years. Tonight had been a wake-up call. She'd rather go after his cold fish of a brother than touch him. He couldn't let this continue. She would always belong to him. Duan Jingming stared at Chu Jing's message and made his decision. 3 days passed. Wen Li went about her routine, rehearsing with the art troupe, composing, eating, binge-watching shows, and shopping with Su Nian as she told her best friend everything about Duan Qiyu. And about the confusion she was wrestling with. Su Nian rested her chin on her hand and sighed. Ah, love. Simple and complicated at the same time. I never thought Brother Qiyu would do something like that. When you broke up with Duan Jingming that night, he was already waiting to swoop in. Wen Li sipped her milk tea, chewing on the pearls without answering. She hadn't asked Duan Qiyu about that night. As far as she remembered, she'd gotten drunk and made the first move, but it wasn't exactly a coincidence that he just happened to be there. Su Nian took a sip of her own tea. So you two are still in a Cold War? Wen Li nodded. Yet he's been texting me, but I haven't replied. She just didn't know how to respond. Su Nian gave her a maternal look and ruffled her hair. Those Duan brothers really are something else. One of them protected you all those years, then turned around and got with another woman, and still expects you to wait 3 years for him. What a jerk. The other has been secretly in love with you forever, kept up this icy act for over a decade. But underneath, he's a possessive creep who's been jealous of his own brother and stole your first kiss on the sly. Li Bao, you need to figure out what you really want. Don't end up regretting it. Wen Li's dazed eyes slowly focused, and she nodded firmly. After Su Nian left, her phone rang. The caller ID read Wen Ling. She answered, and a reluctant voice came through. Mom wants you to come home. What is it? Wen Li's tone was flat. Wen Ling was still pissed about her performance the other night. How the hell should I know what it is? You blocked Mom's number, so she's making me call you. If you've got questions, call her yourself. Okay. Wen Li hung up without hesitation. Wen Ling stared at his phone, blinked, then cursed. Shit. She'd hung up on him again. The memory of her smashing a bottle over his head in the bar, then calling some other guy her brother. All that buried anger came roaring back. He called her right away. Wen Li answered, thinking he had more to say. His voice exploded through the speaker. Let me make this clear. Wen Li, you don't want me as your brother? Fine. I don't want you as my sister either. Go ahead and adopt 10 or 20 brothers. I don't give a damn. I only ever treated you with any respect because of Jingming. Don't think just because you're technically my sister you get to lecture me. He got it all out and hung up first. The weight in his chest finally lifted. Wen Li set down her phone and blinked twice. Psycho. When did she adopt a brother? And 10 or 20 brothers. That was dramatic. But Chin-Su did want her to be his sister. He'd liked her social media posts. Kept inviting her out, but she'd never said yes even once. Considering he and Wen Ling hung out together, that had to be the problem. After getting chewed out for no reason, her rebellious streak kicked in. She pulled up Chin-Su's chat and typed, I'm willing to be your sister. He replied fast, Really? I'm so happy. From now on I'm not calling you Wen Li, just Big Sis. Pick a day. I'll tell my parents so they can take you in as their goddaughter. Wen Li stared at the screen, bewildered. She'd only agreed to be his sister in words. How had that turned into a whole family situation? This was getting serious. She snapped back to reality and typed, Let's just keep it between us, and no need to bother the elders. Chin-Su fired back. How is it bothering them? I'm serious about having you as my sister. This isn't some kid's game. Don't worry. Big sis.my parents are super easygoing. They wanted a daughter for years, couldn't have one, then had me late in life. My family spoils kids. They won't let you get hurt, and they won't interfere with your life. Ever since he'd seen her in the bar that night, Chinsu had been thinking about turning Wen Ling's sister into his own. A sister like her sure as hell didn't deserve a jerk like Wen Ling. Chinsu was an only child, and he'd never envied anyone for having siblings. But that first glimpse of Wen Li, he thought, if he ever had a sister, she'd have to be exactly like Wen Li. He just knew they'd be happy as a family. Faced with all that enthusiasm, Wen Li wavered. He fit the image she'd had as a kid of what Wen Ling should have been. A brother who acts tough with everyone else, but is sweet with his sister. But Wen Ling had been a demon since childhood, snatching her stuff, yanking her hair, always messing up her life, then running off laughing that he'd already soaked up all their parents' affection. Yet he still wouldn't leave her the tiny slice of peace she had. He'd storm into her space and leave like he owned it. Petty stuff, sure. But back then Wen Li was just a kid too, only 2 years older than him. Thinking about it still made her blood boil. She hardened her heart. Find out I'll visit in a few days. If a brother doesn't behave, swap him out to no big deal. Chinsu was overjoyed. It's settled then. Big sis that I'll talk to my parents. You tell me when. Wen Li replied with a sure. After sending it, she felt a strange buzz, like she'd just done something huge, and why was she a little excited about it? But really, adopting herself into a new family was kind of a big deal for her. The thought popped into her head. She should tell Duan Qiyu. The moment it did, she deflated. She still hadn't sorted out her feelings. She had no idea what attitude to take with him. Wen Li didn't want to fall into an emotional spiral. Like Nian Nian said, love is simple and complicated at the same time. Maybe she needed some moment, something that would make everything clear, or give her a decision. Right now she didn't have that, and she couldn't force it. She'd come back to life to start over, to enjoy a new life. Wen Li tossed her empty milk teacup into the trash and left the mall. On the ride home, her phone rang with an unexpected call. Her father, Wen Xiangsong. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pressed accept. Dad, come home tomorrow. His voice was flat and stern, heavy with a middle-aged weight that pressed down on her breathing. What for? She asked evenly. His tone turned harder. Do I need a reason to tell you to come home? How long has it been since you last visited? We raised you for over 20 years. Now that you're all grown up and independent, you can't be bothered to see us anymore. Is that it? 3 rhetorical questions, 3 accusations. She gripped her phone, forcing calm. That's not true. You know whether it is or not. Come back tomorrow. I won't say it a third time. Wen Li bit her lower lip hard and pushed out a single word. Okay. Click. He hung up. The tension drained out of her body. Blood ties are the hardest to break. Even coming back from the dead couldn't change much. Her feelings for her parents were painfully complicated. Her mother almost died giving birth to her. From the moment she was born, Chu Jing didn't love her in her mother's eyes. She was the demon who nearly killed her. It hurt, but Wen Li didn't know what else to do except stay out of her mother's way. Her father never blamed her for the difficult birth. He gave her basic paternal love. Let her live like a proper heiress of the Wen family. That basic love didn't change even after Wen Ling was born. Until that day. That day she finally saw exactly where she stood in her father's heart. She would never forget what happened. Memory pulled her back to when she was 8 years old. Wen Li floated in the Wen family pool with her swimming ring, still learning to swim but not quite confident yet. She practiced alone in the water, kicking and paddling quietly. Wen Ling showed up, as always, to cause trouble. He jumped into the pool with his own swimming ring and started chasing her around, splashing and grabbing at her. He was 6 years old, at that age where mischief came as naturally as breathing. Wen Li was so annoyed she finally hauled herself out of the water. The moment she stepped onto the deck, Wen Ling scrambled after her, ripped the swimming ring from her hands, yanked out the air valve in a fit of anger, and stomped on it until it was flat. Wen Li felt hurt, furious, but she was used to this. That it was just another Tuesday. She picked up her deflated ring and walked away in silence. She'd barely made it to the gate when she heard a splash behind her. Wen Ling had slipped, lost his balance, and fallen into the pool without his ring. Wen Li's mind went blank. Pure instinct took over. She spun around, grabbed the flattened ring from the ground, and dove into the water. But she forgot. She'd only just learned to swim herself. She kicked her legs as hard as she could, using the ring's buoyancy to pull her brother up to the surface. Water rushed into her mouth, choking her. The household staff noticed the commotion and rushed over, pulling them both out. Chu Jing and Wen Xiangsong happened to be home. They headed for the pool the second they heard what happened. Wen Li collapsed onto the deck, gasping for air. Chu Jing ran up and snatched a sobbing Wen Ling from the maid's arms. It's okay. It's okay. Shoo. Mommy's here. Mommy's here. Chu Jing cradled her precious son, fury building in her chest. She shot a glare at Wen Li and yanked her roughly to her feet. Wen Li, you. Before the accusation could finish, a figure lunged forward, arms swinging, and slapped Wen Li clean across the face. The blow from her father sent blood streaming from both nostrils. Her tender cheeks swelled almost instantly. The pain was so sharp it went numb, followed by a ringing in her ears and her father's roar. You nearly killed your brother. I didn't. Don't you talk back to me. Another slap. Wen Li crashed to the floor. Wen Xiangsong had never lost his temper like this in front of everyone. The maids froze. Even Chu Jing was stunned. And when Ling stopped crying, the air turned thick and unbearable. They the head of the household. Wen Xiangsong was authority incarnate. His rage still burned that he pointed at her. You almost killed your mother back then, and now you nearly killed your brother. Get out of here. You're a curse on this family. Get out and don't come back. Wen Li's stiff body stirred. She pushed herself up from the ground. She walked away in silence, wiping the blood from her nose with the back of her hand. Tears mixed with blood smeared across her fingers and palm. The physical pain was nothing compared to the ache in her chest. In that moment, she understood completely. Her father didn't love her either. It didn't matter how Wen Ling had fallen into the pool. It didn't matter who had been the one to save him. They weren't looking for the truth. They were looking for someone to take the blame. And she was right there. She was the older sister. She was Wen Li. Everything could be laid at her feet. From that day on, Wen Li never swam again. And she stopped hoping for a family's love. That same year, Duan Jingming wandered into her world, like a warm ray of sunshine lighting up her life. Wen Li forced herself out of the memory, through the taxi window. The city street scenes flickered past in a blur. Her phone buzzed with a message notification. Duan Qiyu had sent her a picture. She tapped to enlarge it and stared, stunned. That was her handmade blue rabbit charm from years ago. Her own pink rabbit had disappeared long ago. She had no idea where it ended up, but Duan Qiyu's looked as good as new. Another message from him popped up. Guess what I named this rabbit? For the past 3 days, Wen Li had only read his text without replying. But now curiosity got the better of her. She typed back. What? The reply came instantly. Baby. She sent a question mark. Another message followed. Because you're my baby. Her grip on the phone tightened. She was about to close the chat when he sent another one. And the gift from my baby is my treasure. Wen Li curled her toes in her shoes. She couldn't help replying. Where did you learn that cheesy line? Duan Qiyu replied. Cheesy. I didn't learn it from anywhere that I really mean so even a guy like him said things like that to the girl he liked that a laugh escaped her lips. The knot in her chest loosened. Even the dread of having to go back to the one family tomorrow felt a little lighter. Across the city, Duan Jingming answered a call from Chu Jing. Jingming, Wen Li agreed to come home tomorrow. Don't worry. Uncle and I will put in a good word for you that I'll call you once she's here. Good that I'll invest in Uncle's new project afterward. Duan Jingming kept it short and hung up that if he hadn't run out of options, he never would have teamed up with Wen Li's parents. Right now, Wen Li wouldn't even talk to him. If this kept up, she'd slip further and further away, until there was nothing left between them. Before it reached that point, he'd use the Wen family to bridge the gap. He needed a chance to talk to her that on the other end. Chu Jing set down her phone and looked at her husband across the room. When Xiangsong sat at the tea table, sipping tea while reading a company report. Honey, I'm a little worried. What if Duan Jingming finds out tomorrow and gets angry? From what Lingling said, he might be seeing other women now, but he still cares about Wen Li. If he blames us, we'll just make things worse. He won't. When Xiangsong put down the report and met his wife's eyes, that young man won't be angry, that he'll be grateful we helped him. Really? Chu Jing wasn't convinced. When Xiangsong explained further, right now, Duan Jingming is desperate to win Wen Li back, but he won't kick the other woman out. Our plan gives him exactly what he wants. And even if he loses his temper later, once we've drugged Wen Li, his instincts will take over. He won't pass up an opportunity like that. Chu Jing's anxiety eased. Then what do we tell Wen Li afterward? Tell her. When Xiangsong scoffed, we're her parents, we gave her life and raised her. What do we owe her for an explanation? Is pushing her to get back with Duan Jingming going to hurt her? The Duan family is elite. If she marries the second young master, she'll thank us one day. Chu Jing nodded. You're right. After all the trouble I went through to give birth to her, she's lucky she landed herself a golden catch so young. And now she's lost her mind, trying to cut ties with him. Lucky for us, Duan Jingming still has feelings for her. Marrying him is good for her and good for our family. When Xiangsong and Chu Jing were on the same page, what Wen Li wanted didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was she married someone useful to the Wen family. Duan Jingming was a golden catch. Even if Wen Li didn't want him, they would force her to. And if that required extreme measures, so be it. The two parties had made their deal, each with their own agenda. Only Wen Li remained in the dark. The next evening, the setting sun soaked the sky in red. The summer heat faded, cicadas grew lazy, and twilight stretched across the horizon. A taxi drove into an affluent neighborhood. Rows of detached villas lined the streets, perfectly arranged. Wen Li pressed the doorbell at the Wen residence. Chenma opened the door. She'd been the villa's housekeeper for over a decade. Miss, please come in. Wen Li stepped into the living room. Her father sat on the sofa, scowling at a stack of papers. Beside him, Chu Jing's knitting needles clicked away on a gray scarf. Wen Li took the seat farthest from them. Chenma set down a cup of floral tea and disappeared. What do you want? She didn't plan on staying long. Better to cut right to the point. When Xiangsong lowered the papers and fixed his eyes on her. I heard you broke up with Duan Jingming. Did I ask that true? Yes. Chu Jing let out a cold laugh and cut in. You threw away a man like Duan Jingming. Where exactly are you going to find someone better? Wen Li pressed her lips together and said nothing. Her father's voice hardened. Your mother's right. Relationships take effort. Stop being so stubborn. Duan Jingming still has feelings for you. Patch things up. I don't want to, Wen Li said, her tone flat. So you've grown wings, have you? He let the sneer hang in the air. There was nothing left to discuss. She stood. If that's all, I'm leaving. Sit down, he barked. We're not done here. What are you running from? Chu Jing snapped. You think we're going to eat you alive? Duan Jingming hadn't shown up yet. They couldn't let her go now. When Xiang Song drove the point home, you're not walking out of this room until you hear us out. Chinma, put 2 men at the door. Yes, sir. The housekeeper's voice rang clear from the hallway. Wen Li clenched her fists and sat back down as though they were keeping her here until she agreed to get back together with Duan Jingming. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone and typed out a message to Duan Qiyu. When family home, come get me. His reply came in seconds that on my way that if Duan Qiyu showed up, the winds wouldn't be able to hold her. Across town, Duan Qiyu ended the meeting mid-sentence, grabbed his keys, and walked out. When Xiang Song fired a pointed look at Chu Jing, and she switched to playing good cop, Xiao Li, we're only looking out for you. The Duans have wealth and power. Marrying Jingming means you'll live in comfort. Both his parents are on board that you're a perfect match. When Li's cold gaze sliced toward her, did he tell you he's marrying someone else next month? Both of them froze. They clearly hadn't heard that. But Duan Jingming had sworn to reconcile with Wen Li as part of their little arrangement. How could he be marrying someone else? When Xiang Song's brows pulled together. What are you talking about? Wen Li snorted. Ask him yourself if you don't believe me. Footsteps sounded from the hall. Duan Jingming walked in, timing flawless. Even as he crossed the threshold, he could feel the tension that Chu Jing didn't hold back. Are you marrying someone else next month? He glanced at Wen Li. Still weighing my options. And that means what exactly? When Xiang Song demanded, Duan Jingming's eyebrow lifted. It means if Ali agrees to give us another shot, I won't marry anybody else. He didn't care about breaking his promise to Jiang Wantong anymore. Too much had unraveled over the past month. Wen Li mattered more. The second the words left his mouth, Wen Li let out a cold laugh. She couldn't stomach looking at him. So she picked up the tea and took a sip. Her parents traded a fast, shadowed look. They relaxed their shoulders, pretending to be reassured by his words. When Xiang Song spoke up, since Jingming is here, why don't the two of you talk in one of the rooms? Your mother and I. We'll keep out of it. Wen Li's lips twisted. She wondered what Duan Jingming had offered them this time to turn them into matchmakers. She knew Duan Qiyu would be here any minute. Standing, she headed toward a guest room on the first floor that a few minutes one-on-one with Duan Jingming was better than facing her parents. Besides, she had things to say to him. He followed her in. Back in the living room, when Xiang Song and Chu Jing stared at the half-empty teacup, the stage was set. Now it was up to biology to eye in their twisted logic. Nothing brought a man and woman together like that. Duan Jingming hadn't seen that look they exchanged. He was about to find out what those two had done behind his back. The room hit Wen Li like a wave of heat. She assumed it was just stuffy in there. She dropped into a single armchair and faced the man leaning against the door. You went to all this trouble just to use my parents against me? He tugged at his collar. No, I just needed a chance to talk. He crossed over and crouched at her feet. Ali, I'm not marrying Jiang Wantong. Let's start over. I'm asking you. Wen Li felt her temperature spike with every passing second. She fought the heat crawling through her and frowned. Whether you marry her or not is your business, not mine. I don't feel that way about you anymore, but I'll say it again. Once you actually let go, I'll still treat you like an older brother. Nothing more. Duan Jingming's brows snapped together. He braced his arms on either side of her chair and leaned in close. You change your mind? For who? My brother? You think I'd buy that? 3 quick questions, all pushing her. Stay back. When Li's head swam, she tried to shove him away. He didn't move. Her strength was draining way too fast. He finally noticed the unnatural flush climbing her cheeks. He pressed his hand to her forehead. You're burning up? Ali, you've got a fever. Let me take you to the hospital. Her legs gave out beneath her. The spreading heat told her exactly what had happened. That tea at IT had to be. She slapped his hand away, eyes blazing. Don't play innocent. You had them drug me. What? Someone drugged you. His shock looked real, but her mind was too foggy to tell. She was dizzy now, her body aching. She couldn't think clearly enough to see if he was acting. He scowled hard. Believe me or don't. I had no idea. I'm getting you to a hospital right now. When Xiangsong and Chu Jing had some nerve, drugging their own daughter, he never should have teamed up with them, but he ran for the door. That IT wouldn't budge. Hello? Anybody out there? He hammered on it. Nothing but silence. Ali, they locked us in. He checked the window. Iron bars. That he came back to her side. They're not letting us out of here. He couldn't name the feeling churning inside him. Anger tangled with something that felt a lot like anticipation. Wen Li gripped the chair, nails digging white. She clung to one last shred of clarity. She didn't tell him his brother was on the way. That if that tipped him over the edge and he tried something right now, she'd be finished. She had to keep from launching herself at him, and she had to keep him from coming any closer. Stay away. She forced out, but the drug was stronger than her willpower. A moan slipped past her lips. Her warning glare only made her look more dangerous, more alluring. With her face already that striking, the flush of desire turned her devastating. Duan Jingming's resolve flickered. Ali, we were husband and wife in a past life. Let me help you. He crouched and leaned toward her. She pressed a trembling palm against his chest, shaking hard. No. You're tainted. His fist clenched. Tainted? He caught her chin in his hand. Then I'll make sure you're tainted too. He moved in to force a kiss. Get off me. She used the last of her strength to wrench her face away. They struggled, bodies twisting. A massive crash splintered the air from the door. Bang! The door flew open. A figure charged inside. A foot slammed into Duan Jingming's shoulder, hurling him to the floor. Before he could even register the pain, his collar was wrenched upward. He looked into a pair of cold, blade-sharp phoenix eyes. Brother! The man's jaw was iron. His dark pupils held a deathly stillness. His voice came out low, heavy, and lethally controlled. I'll deal with you later. With that, he swept Wen Li out of the chair and raced from the room. He blew past Wen Xiangsong and Chu Jing like a bitter winter wind, leaving them pale and frozen in shock. Duan Qiyu was grateful he'd brought the driver. Wen Li was barely conscious. She clung to his neck so tightly that driving was out of the question. The second they were in the back seat, he ordered, nearest hospital, now. Then he raised the privacy divider. I need. Wen Li writhed against him, her mouth searching for his. Duan Qiyu dodged her, soothing her as he moved. Just hold on a little longer, we're almost there. I can't. Every last shred of Wen Li's willpower was gone. All she wanted now was to follow her body's instincts. Sweat beaded on Duan Qiyu's forehead. Only his iron self-control kept him from losing it too. He pinned her arms against his chest, holding her steady in the tight space. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Be good, it won't hurt much longer. Just hold on. This was a villa district. The nearest hospital was at least 4 miles away. Every second stretched into an eternity. With her body restrained, Wen Li kept trying to reach his mouth. He dodged her every attempt. She started crying, barely coherent. Don't cry, don't cry. Duan Qiyu's eyes reddened. Watching the woman he loved in agony, crying in his arms, twisted something inside him. It wasn't that he didn't want to help her, that he couldn't. This wasn't a choice Wen Li would make with a clear head, and she still didn't fully trust him. If he used this as an excuse to take advantage, whatever they had would be over, for good. Wen Li was past reason. Desire had consumed her completely. She sobbed against him, begging, help me. Please, help me. Duan Qiyu was losing his mind. He kissed her hard on the mouth. The moment he tried to pull back, her hot, slick tongue slid past his lips. He summoned every ounce of willpower he had and broke the kiss. The contact vanished. Wen Li struggled harder, crying with more desperation. She bit down on the side of his neck, whimpering against his skin. The veins on the back of Duan Qiyu's hand bulged. He pressed a hand to her nape. "Do you know who I am?" Yuji. This time, she recognized him. Relief and joy surged through him, but it only made him more determined to reach the hospital. Still, for the next few minutes, he did what he could to ease her suffering. He traced his fingers along her jaw, his expression dark. His elegant fingertips brushed her wet, flushed lips. His voice came out rough. "Baby, let's use this, okay?" Wen Li gripped his wrist, her glazed eyes blurred with need. "Okay." When Wen Li woke, the first thing she saw was a white wall. The sharp scent of disinfectant hung in the air. She was in a hospital bed, in the chair beside her. Duan Qiyu leaned back, his long arms and legs stretched out, eyes closed. As if he sensed her gaze, his eyes opened slowly. His dark pupils lit up. "You're awake. How do you feel?" Wen Li shook her head and sat up. He grabbed a water bottle from the table and unscrewed the cap. "The doctor gave you a blocker. Rest tonight, and you'll be fine by morning." He handed her the open bottle. Wen Li's gaze dropped to his hand. Pale skin, long, lean fingers. The tendons stood out against the back of his hand. His nails were trimmed in neat arcs, clean and precise. Those hands, they had heat, flooded her face. She snatched the water and took a fast, desperate gulp. She remembered losing consciousness in the card, or more accurately, in Duan Qiyu's arms. Her face burning, she murmured, "Thank you, Yuji." He took the bottle back, switched it to his other hand, and set it on the table. Then, with his free hand, he gently pinched her chin between his thumb and forefinger. His voice held a quiet smile. "What are you thanking me for? You're my girlfriend." Wen Li didn't know what to say. It felt like they had slid right back into that ambiguous space. Physically, she was fine. She asked to go home and rest. Duan Qiyu drove her all the way to her door. He didn't linger. He said a proper good night and left. That night, Wen Li dreamed, or rather, her subconscious replayed everything that had happened in the in the dream. She saw every move Duan Qiyu had made with painful clarity. She woke up groggy in the morning. When she came to her senses, she covered her face. "Wen Li, you greedy little thing." At the Duan family estate, Duan Jingming had been summoned by his brothers. Call. Even if Duan Qiyu hadn't reached out, he'd planned to demand answers about yesterday. He knocked and entered the tea room. His older brother sat at the tea table in a white linen shirt, his features elegant and cooled. He poured tea with slow, deliberate movements. Duan Jingming sat across from him, taking in that familiar, indifferent expression. But the look his brother had given him yesterday at the one house still sent a chill down his spine. The atmosphere in the tea room was suffocating. Duan Jingming couldn't stand it. He didn't even glance at the tea in front of him. "Brother, how did Ali get the drug out of her system?" He knew there was no way his brother and Wen Li had gone that far, but he still needed details. Duan Qiyu knew exactly what his younger brother was after. "The doctor gave her a blocker." Duan Jingming exhaled. The tension drained from his shoulders. He lifted the cup of fine Longjing tea and took a sip. That he relaxed too soon. The next second, his brother said coolly, "But on the way to the hospital, we kissed." Thump! The teacup slipped from Duan Jingming's hand and hit the table with a dull thud. He slammed both palms down, his eyes sharp with fury. "How could you kiss her? She's mine." With a potent aphrodisiac in Wen Li's system, that kiss couldn't have been anything innocent. The thought alone made Duan Jingming's eyes redden. He knew that under those circumstances, even his brother couldn't resist her. But he couldn't control his rage that it felt like both of them had betrayed him. Duan Qiyu seemed completely unaffected by his brother's outburst, his dark, steady eyes fixed on Duan Jingming, utterly calm. "Do I need to teach you what respect means?" Duan Jingming opened his mouth to argue. Then a flash of white moved in front of him. A brutal force slammed into his shoulder. The next second, thud, that he was thrown clean over Duan Qiyu's shoulder and hit the floor hard. Every bone in his body felt shattered and rearranged. That he writhed, face twisted in pain, cursing through gritted teeth. "Shit." Duan Jingming kept himself in shape that he could take a hit. But Duan Qiyu had put real weight behind that move. A deliberate lesson. Duan Qiyu looked down at his brother, his pitch-black eyes cold and detached. "You should be grateful I'm your brother. I'll say this one more time. Wen Li is not a thing, and she does not belong to you." Duan Qiyu finished speaking and strode out of the tea room, leaving Duan Jingming sprawled on the floor, his expression dark. He finally understood. His brother actually wanted Wen Li. Why else kiss her? No wonder he'd been so hostile lately. Jealousy. Jealous that she was in love with him, Duan Jingming. Now that he saw he'd been nothing but a pawn, his brother was finally lashing out. That he scrambled to his feet and stormed out to find his mother. She was sitting in the garden pavilion, sipping Tilon. Yuding looked up as her younger son charged toward her, fury all over his face. She rose quickly and went to meet him. "What's wrong, Mingming? What happened?" The woman was over 50 but still stunning. Even her startled expression couldn't mask her beauty in that blue and white porcelain qipao. Clearly the brothers had inherited their parents' good looks. Duan Jingming forced down his rage and kept his face hard. "I'm fine." Lan Yuding relaxed a little. "Then why the rush?" He flashed a dark smile. "Mom, my brother's 26. It's time you arranged a blind date for him." Her brows lifted. "Since when do you care about your brother's love life?" His eyes darkened as he let the implication hang. "Mom, hasn't it ever bothered you that he's never had a girlfriend in all these years? If we don't get him around women soon, I'm worried." The hint was obvious. Lan Yuding's face went cold. So that was what this was about. He must have found out something and come to warn her. She wasn't a traditional parent, but she absolutely couldn't accept the possibility that her son might be gay. Not her eldest, the brilliant, shining star of the family. Couldn't carry that label. Her voice turned sharp. "I understand. I'll arrange a blind date for him soon." Duan Jingming looked up, calculation glinting in his eyes. "He won't go willingly. We'll need to surprise him." "How?" she asked. He laid out the plan. Once she agreed, he left, satisfied. With his mother on board, half the battle was won. His brother always listened to her, and even if he didn't agree to a match, Duan Jingming would still get what he wanted. He'd make sure Wen Li saw Duan Qiyu on a blind date. Knowing her, she'd steer clear of his brother after that. And since he'd already decided he wasn't marrying Jiang Wanton, he'd have more time to win Wen Li back. Wen Li had no idea about the rivalry brewing between the brothers. They both kept it hidden. The morning after the drugging incident, she got a call from her father, Wen Xiangsong. She didn't want anything to do with the Wen family anymore, but she knew it wasn't that simple. After what they'd done, though, the gloves were off. Dignity? Screw that. Parents who drugged their own daughter just to hand her over to a man didn't deserve the title. She hit accept. His voice was as cold as ever. "What's your relationship with Duan Qiyu?" "None of your business. I'm your father. You have the nerve to say that." "Wen Li," he roared. Her voice stayed flat. "From now on, the Wen family is the Wen family, and I'm me. Don't call me again." Wen Xiangsong let out a cold laugh. "Think you can cut ties? Dream on. I know you're bitter, but we drugged you for your own good." Her hand tightened into a fist, her eyes sharp. For my own good, or for your company. We both know the truth. Save your fake concern that I don't care who I marry. I'm never giving the Wen family a single benefit. Bang. She hung up, blocked his number, and blocked Wen Ling too. That was it. All three of her direct relatives were blocked. They'd never given her a shred of love, yet they wanted to use her like a resource, in a way. She turned her anger into fuel and signed up for boxing and kickboxing classes. From today on, she'd get strong enough to protect herself. For the next 3 or 4 days, she lived a simple life. Art troupe, gym, home. Her body ached everywhere, but she felt full. For the first time, she had real strength and hope. Her relationship with Duan Qiyu had slid into a strange, unspoken tension since the drugging that she'd turned down his 2 invitations. He said nothing. They both knew they were still in a probationary phase, that he was waiting for her answer. She was waiting for her own heart to decide. She was someone desperate for affection, falling. For Duan Jingming had taken no effort at all, but his betrayal made her cautious before she could give her heart again. And this man? He was Duan Jingming's older brother. For now, she liked where they were. In no rush. That morning, Wan Yuding called. Wen Li. Ali, come over for lunch at the old house that I haven't seen you in a while, and I miss you. Wen Li smiled and agreed. After hanging up, Wan Yuding turned to her younger son. Your brother has a blind date at noon. Why did you want me to invite Ali? Duan Jingming bit back the truth and said, I thought she could help us check the girl out, that she's around the same age as that Zhang family girl. Let them chat so we can decide if she's good enough for my brother. Wan Yuding didn't suspect a thing. She looked at him approvingly. You're really thinking ahead. For once, you're being responsible about your brother. He just gave a mocking smile that if he didn't get responsible now, his wife was going to get stolen. Wan Yuding suddenly frowned. Wait. Did you and Ali have a fight? He hadn't called Wen Li himself. He'd made her do it. Something was off. Duan Jingming's expression darkened. A little disagreement. She blocked me. Every time I try to see her, I get turned away. Wan Yuding was genuinely surprised. She knew how much Wen Li had always adored her younger son. What did you do to make her so mad? He looked away, guilt flickering across his face. Mom, can we not talk about it? It's like rubbing salt in a wound. Fine that I won't ask. High summer. Noon. The lotus pond was still, the heat thick and sticky. Duan Qiyu strode into the main hall and found his mother, who had called claiming she had heat stroke, sitting perfectly fine on the sofa, laughing with a young woman. One look told him everything. She'd been ignoring his refusals to blind dates, and had now forced one on him. Fine. Today, he'd put an end to this for good. Wan Yuding waved him over. You, come sit. He dropped into a single armchair and shot his mother a cold glance. She blinked, a little guilty. Her son was too intimidating. Even a mother couldn't handle it. Zhang Baiwei didn't catch their silent exchange. Her eyes had been glued to Duan Qiyu since he walked in. From the moment she learned her blind date was the legendary Duan Qiyu of the capital, she'd vowed to bring her A-game. This chance had cost her mother a lot of favors. She wasn't going to blow it. You, this is Uncle Zhang's daughter, Zhang Baiwei. She just came back from studying abroad and works at the capital's cardiac department that I hear she's won several international medical awards. Zhang Baiwei lowered her eyes and smiled modestly. It was a team effort. She shot him a shy, hopeful glance. Duan Qiyu didn't flinch. He was about to make his position clear when a slender figure stepped into the courtyard. His mother's voice rang out before he could react. Ali, come quick. Look, don't you think you and Wei Wei make a perfect couple? Wen Li stopped in her tracks. Wen Li's heart lurched. She kept her expression calm as she walked toward Wan Yuding. her gaze shifting automatically to the young woman standing beside her. The woman was elegant, her makeup subtle, every movement polished in a way that spoke of good breeding. She offered her hand first. "Hello, I'm Zhang Baiwei. You can call me Wei Wei." "Hello, Wen Li." Wen Li shook her hand politely. Zhang Baiwei smiled. "I know who you are, principal pianist with the Kyoto art troupe. You and the second young master are such a gorgeous couple, truly a perfect match." Duan Qiyu's eyes flickered. His hand stopped halfway to his phone. Zhang Baiwei had clearly done her homework on the Duan family. The comment was meant to win points with both Wen Li and Lan Yuding. But only Lan Yuding looked pleased. Wen Li's gaze drifted instinctively to Duan Qiyu. He was staring at his phone. She looked away, cold, and spoke directly to Zhang Baiwei. "Miss Zhang, your information is wrong. Duan Jingming and I broke up a long time ago." "What?" The gasp came from Lan Yuding. "Jingming told me you two were just having a fight. He never said anything about a breakup." Wen Li shook her head. "He has a new girlfriend now. Her name is Jiang Wantong." Lan Yuding spun toward Duan Qiyu. "Did you know about this?" Duan Qiyu tucked his phone away. His voice was even. "Ollie is telling the truth." Before Lan Yuding could absorb the shock, Duan Jingming strolled in, hands in his pockets. "What truth? What are you all talking about?" He scanned the room with a cheerful expression, and his gaze landed on Wen Li. There was a smugness to him, the look of someone who'd come to watch a show he'd orchestrated himself. Wen Li felt his eyes on her, but didn't turn. Lan Yuding's face sharpened. She motioned to her younger son. "Come here. Ollie is in this house today, so you'd better explain to me exactly what's going on between the two of you." Then she turned to her elder son. "Ew, take Miss Zhang for a walk in the garden." Zhang Baiwei picked up her clutch and rose, her bright eyes fixed on Duan Qiyu. Duan Qiyu stood, but he gave Wen Li a long, searching look. Then he walked out without a word. Zhang Baiwei hurried after him, falling into step at his side until they both disappeared from view. Wen Li's mind went blank. Then she heard Duan Jingming's voice. "Mom, Ollie and I will handle our own business. You should focus on my brother and Miss Zhang's engagement." "Engagement?" Her breath caught that a dull ache spread through her chest, like ants gnawing from the inside, raw and relentless. She forced the turmoil back down. Lan Yuding addressed her younger son. "Of course I'll worry about your brother's engagement. But first, tell me about you and Ollie. Did you really break up?" Wen Li snapped back to the present. "Yes, Auntie Ting." Duan Jingming slid shamelessly onto the seat beside her, a lazy smirk on his face. "We broke up, but I plan to win her back." He reached out with casual arrogance, picking up a strand of Wen Li's hair that had fallen over her shoulder and twirling it between his fingers. Lan Yuding felt a flicker of relief. The affection in her son's eyes couldn't be faked. She was about to smile when Wen Li doused her with ice water. Wen Li smacked his hand away and spoke coldly to Lan Yuding. "Auntie Ting, I didn't want to bring this up with you, but I'm afraid you'll keep misunderstanding. I'll make my stance clear today that I will never get back together with second brother. This isn't a fight that I am completely and utterly done with him, and no matter what happens from here on out, I will not take him back." Duan Jingming's easy grin faded. His face went gray, his eyes locked onto her profile. Lan Yuding realized there was more to this story. She straightened. "What exactly happened between you two?" Wen Li didn't even glance at Duan Jingming, who looked ready to bore a hole straight through her. She cut to the point. "He cheated." Lan Yuding's expression froze. She whipped around to face her younger son. "How could you do something like that?" Duan Jingming didn't answer his mother. He just stared at Wen Li, his voice dropping low. "I know I was wrong. That can't you forgive me just this once? I'll break up with Jiang Wantong right now. Cancel the 3-year agreement. That let's get back together, okay?" Wen Li finally turned to meet his gaze. The soft scoff escaped her lips. Too late. She stood and took her leave from Lan Yuding. I'm sorry, Auntie Ting, that I have to go. Ollie. Lan Yuding didn't know what to say to Asa mother. She wanted to defend her son, but as a woman with a normal moral compass, she could never accept betrayal from a partner. She knew how much Wen Li had loved her younger son. If the girl was saying she'd never take him back, it meant she was truly broken. Wen Li walked out fast. Duan Jingming followed and tried to grab her arm. She dodged. He slammed a hand onto her shoulder, pinning her in place. His expression sharpened. Find, don't get back. Together, but I'm telling you right now, I will never let you go. You're mine. He released her. His tone turned harsher. My brother is getting engaged. Stay away from him from now on. He stalked off. The sunlight blazed down on him, but it only made him look more menacing. Wen Li had grown immune to Duan Jingming's shamelessness. She let out a long breath. When she looked up, she saw two figures approaching. Duan Qiyu and Zhang Baiwei were walking side by side. The woman was talking, her face lit with a smile. His expression was calm, but not cold. The sun was blazing, but to Wen Li, the air felt heavy, like a storm pressing down. Every ray of light stung like a needle against her skin. She narrowed her eyes. That a hot, restless anger surged through her. His brother is getting engaged. Engaged? They hadn't even broken up, and Duan Qiyu was already planning to marry someone else. Fine. Just fine. Did both Duan brothers think she was someone they could push around? The anger made her bold. She marched straight toward the two figures. When she reached them, she stopped and spoke directly to Duan Qiyu, her voice ice. I need to talk to you. Come with me. She didn't wait. She headed for a nearby guest room. Duan Qiyu's heart dropped. He murmured an apology to Zhang Baiwei and followed. Zhang Baiwei watched them disappear, a flicker of envy in her eyes. She shook her head with a wry smile and returned to the sitting room. Auntie, forget about the marriage alliance. Lan Yuding was still reeling from the shock over her younger son. She pressed, why? Don't you like Ayu? I know he's a bit cold, but feelings can grow, that I'm sure. That's not it, Auntie. Zhang Baiwei cut her off gently. Your son already has someone in his heart. He loves her deeply. He will never marry me. Zhang Baiwei had promised Duan Qiyu she wouldn't say the name. Lan Yuding's heart lurched. So her son really did have a secret love. He was willing to stay single the rest of his life for this person. Zhang Baiwei had no idea where Lan Yuding's imagination had just gone. She said her polite goodbyes and left the Duan residence, still carrying a trace of envy for when I'd have a man like Duan Qiyu, a man born to privilege, pining for her for nearly a decade. Who wouldn't want that kind of love? But envy or not, it wasn't hers. She would find someone who loved her too. Wen Li stepped into the empty guest room. Duan Qiyu followed close behind. Baby, don't call me that. She spun around to glare at him, but he was so tall she instantly felt her authority evaporate. That only made her angrier. She grabbed his hand and yanked him down onto the edge of the bed. He caught on to what she wanted and let himself drop. Now she could finally look down at him. Barely, but it didn't ease her frustration. That if anything, meeting his bewildered eyes only poured gasoline on the fire. Let's break up. What? Panic flickered across his face. Why? The question made her see red. You're asking me why? You're about to get engaged to someone else, and you're asking me why we should break up? Duan Qiyu froze for a second. Then he let out a breath, and the tension in his shoulders eased. That he pulled out his phone, opened their chat, and held the screen up for her to see. I sent you a message. That I thought you saw it. Wen Li glanced down and fished her phone out of her bag. The screen was black. That IT had died without her noticing. He took it from her hand and placed his own phone in her palm. She swiped to his messages that I didn't know about the blind date today, that my mom tricked me into coming, that I'm telling her I have a girlfriend right after this. I won't mention you unless you say it's okay. Sorry. He'll make Ms. Zhang back off for good. I told her I'm in love with you. She promised to keep it secret. Point 3 messages. Point 3. Different timestamps. The frustration tightening in Wen Li's chest dissolved, replaced by a hot rush of embarrassment. She dropped her gaze and held the phone out, her voice stumbling. I'm sorry. Duan Qiyu took the phone and tossed it aside. In one smooth motion, he pulled her onto his lap and rested his forehead against hers. His voice came out raw. That's it. 3 words. My heart nearly stopped back there. Wen Li bit her lip, her face burning. All because her phone died at the worst possible moment. His hand came up to her chin, thumb and forefinger gently freeing her lip. Don't bite yourself. If you need to bite someone, bite me. She met his eyes. Those narrow phoenix eyes were half-lidded, dark pupils swirling with something she couldn't read. Her gaze fell to his lips, pale, thin, a sharp line against his features. They gave him that cool, indifferent look, but she knew exactly how hot they could burn. A sudden impulse hit her. She leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to his mouth. Pulling back, she asked, "Is that enough of an apology?" "No." In the next heartbeat, his lips captured hers, hard. Deep, he kissed with a fierce urgency, like he was staking a claim or demanding payback for wounded pride. Wen Li's cheeks flushed, her breath quickened as a wave of heat rolled through her, impossible to suppress. She pressed her palms against his shoulders and tried to turn her head, but he caught her by the nape and pulled her back. His lips brushed hers with a trace of desperation. "Don't run. I'm not done yet." His voice was cool, but roughened now. It sent another surge of warmth through her. She closed her eyes and gave in, her tongue tangling with his. She didn't last long. She broke the kiss, gasping for air. He wrapped an arm around her waist and pressed his mouth back to hers, murmuring against her lips, "You taste so sweet. Don't stop now. Stay with me a little longer." And then he kissed her again. It went on and on. When it finally ended, Wen Li was limp in his arms, her limbs weak, her arms looped around his neck as she tried to steady her breathing. His chin rested on top of her head, rubbing gently, slow, tender, both of them working to calm the fire still burning just beneath the surface. Outside the window, the leaves were lush and green. Birdsong drifted in from time to time. The faint scent of flowers and grass from the eaves below filled the air. A perfect peace. In that moment, Wen Li felt nothing but absolute safety. Duan Jingming didn't go to the office after leaving the old mansion. He went straight to a bar friends. Just him, alone in a private booth, downing whiskey glass after glass. Jiang Wantong called and got the address. She rushed over and pushed open the door to find him sitting there, a cigarette burning between his fingers, smoke curling around him. Defeat slumped deep in his posture. "Jingming, let's go home. Stop drinking." She reached for his arm, but he yanked her down onto the couch. She switched tactics. "Find out if you want a drink. I'll drink with you. It's not like I know how much longer my body can hold out anyway." She reached for a glass, but he knocked her hand away. He'd had plenty, but his tolerance was high. His mind was still razor sharp. Jiang Wantong smiled and slid her arm through his, leaning into him. "I know you care about me, and I worry about you too." She paused, her voice softening. "Did Wen Li piss you off again?" Duan Jingming didn't answer, but his body stiffened. She felt it instantly. Her stomach churned. He was hiding something. Was he already regretting the 3-year deal? The thought made her drop the sweet act. She swung a leg over and straddled him. "Jingming, are you backing out of marrying me?" He stared at the woman in front of him. the one he'd pined for in his past life. But 2 months after being reborn, the feelings he'd held for her were almost gone. Could he really last 3 years? A hollow ache opened in his chest, a cold wind whistling through it. The only thing that eased the chill was seeing Wen Li. She was his safe harbor, always had been, always would be. His vision blurred. For a moment, the woman before him seemed to morph into Wen Li. When he stayed silent, Jiang Wantong played her trump card. She leaned in and kissed him hard. He wanted to back out? No way. She put every ounce of skill into seducing him, coaxing a reaction from his unresponsive body. Finally, he started kissing her back with a ferocity she'd never felt from him before. Clothes scattered across the floor. The heat escalated. Jiang Wantong was thrilled. She met his passion with her own, pouring everything into it. Then she heard him murmur, "Wen Li, Wen Li." He called the name with a desperate, fevered devotion. Duan Jingming was still so in love with her. Damn Wen Li. Why couldn't she just disappear? Jiang Wantong dug her nails into the leather couch beneath her. Her hatred solidified into something thick and sharp. Duan Jingming was drunk, but he knew exactly who was under him. He was lying to himself, whispering Wen Li's name, letting the memories of every moment they'd shared flash through his mind. Indulgence and betrayal, deception and ruin. That he knew he'd made a mistake, but she'd told him it was too late. And no, even if she hated him, he'd cling to her until the end. Wen Li stepped out of the guest room and climbed into Duan Qiyu's car. He reached over to buckle her seatbelt, and the question she'd been holding inside suddenly surfaced. "Duan Qiyu, why do you like me?" She'd wondered ever since that night at the party, when she learned he'd had a crush on her for years. What was it about her? He'd known women more beautiful, more talented, and they'd barely crossed paths growing up. He looked into her eyes, his gaze steady. I asked myself the same question once. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. The answer is simple. The heart makes its own decisions. The mouth can't explain them. I don't know why I like you. I only know I could survive without you. But I couldn't live without loving you. Her eyes trembled. Her fingers curled slightly. She swallowed hard, her lips pressing into a thin line. After a long moment, she relaxed. Her voice came out soft and sincere. "Thank you for coming into my life." Duan Qiyu took her hand in his. "No, thank you for stepping into my world." Then, like a voice from the heavens, Wen Li spoke quietly. "Let's get married." Duan Qiyu froze, shock and joy flickering in his eyes. Then he snapped out of it, unbuckled her seatbelt, and pulled her into a hug so tight it said everything words couldn't. A smile spread across Wen Li's face. "Don't get too excited yet, that I'm not done talking." He released her, his expression focused. "Go ahead." She bit her lip, then admitted, "To be honest, my feelings for you are still pretty shallow. Definitely not as deep as what you feel for me. But I know that every day, those feelings grow. If you're okay starting a marriage with that kind of imbalance, then we can get married." The moment she finished, he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to her lips. "How could I ever mind? The fact that you're giving me this chance already makes me happier than I can put into words." He pulled back and asked, his voice low and sincere, "Baby, is this something you've really thought through? Or is it a spur-of-the-moment thing? I don't want you to regret it later." Wen Li met his eyes. Bringing up marriage just now was impulsive, but it was also something I've been turning over in my mind for a while. Actually, no matter what I've been doing lately, I've been thinking about us. That I used to think how I felt about you was mostly physical. After I found out you liked me, I was secretly thrilled, because you're so incredible, but I still wasn't sure if what I felt was real. Then today, when I saw you with Miss Zhang and heard you talking about marriage, I had this strong negative reaction. She locked her gaze on his. That's when I realized, whatever my feelings are, I was jealous. I don't want you to leave me. And I believe marriage will be the best foundation for our relationship to grow steadily." Her honest self-reflection made Duan Qiyu's eyes redden. If the marriage proposal had been pure surprise, this confession was pure emotion that he reached up and ruffled her hair. "Baby, do you want to get the certificate first, or have the wedding first?" Wen Li thought about the Wen family. If they had a wedding, the Duan family would have to invite them out of courtesy. Even if they didn't, they couldn't stop the Wens from showing up. Then there'd be ugly rumors, and the Duan family would take the blame for nothing. She lowered her voice. "I don't want a wedding for now. Let's just get the certificate first." Duan Qiyu seemed to guess the reason, but said nothing. He gently stroked her head again. "Whatever you say. A person's upbringing shapes them forever, and no matter how old you are. Even if you've built a successful life, the cracks from a broken home remain. All you can do is live boldly." And Duan Qiyu could help her do that, remove the things that terrified her, so she could stand a little taller. The next morning, under a bright sun, Wen Li and Duan Qiyu walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, each holding a bright red marriage certificate. He took hers and tucked it with his, a grin spreading across his face. "I'll keep these. I'll get a frame and hang them on the wall." Wen Li's expression said it all. Who hangs a marriage certificate on the wall like art? Her lifelong crush, her prince, turned out to be childish in love. But it was cute. She smiled softly. "Are you laughing at me? Think I'm being childish?" He leaned in, his dark eyes narrowing. Her lashes fluttered. Did this man have mind-reading powers? He guessed it every time. She gave a sly look. "No, you must be seeing things, Yuji. You're still pretending? Just wait till I take care of you." Before she could react, he scooped her up in a bridal carry right there in public and strode toward their car. He opened the back door, set her on the seat, leaned in, and shut the door behind him, sealing out the noise. With the press of a button, the air conditioning kicked in, cooling the air quickly. But Wen Li only grew warmer, because Duan Qiyu looked like a sharp, predatory hunter, his eyes fixed on his prey. Yuji." She pressed herself against the door, clutching her bag to her chest like it could shield her. He reached out, took the bag from her grip, and tossed it onto the passenger seat. Without a word, under her watchful gaze, he grasped her ankle. His palm was warm and dry. The moment he touched her, she flinched as if burned. She tried to pull her foot back, but he held it firmly. He slipped off her strappy sandal, then the other. While he set the shoes aside, she quickly yanked her feet back onto the seat, curling her knees to her chest. Her face was hot enough to fry an egg on in broad daylight, still outdoors. This man had nerve. Wasn't he afraid of someone walking by? "What are you hiding for?" A teasing note in his voice. He reached out again and pulled her ankle back onto his lap. She was wearing a dress today, a chiffon one that barely hit her knees. The smooth fabric was cool, but being yanked like this hiked it up considerably. A lot of pale, smooth thigh was exposed. Face flushed, she forgot about her feet and scrambled to pull her hem down. Out of the corner of his eye, Duan Qiyu took in the expanse of bare skin. The cool air seemed to carry her unique scent. His Adam's apple bobbed as he pulled a tube of ointment from his pocket. He unscrewed the cap, squeezed a bit of white cream onto his fingertip, and applied it to the faint pink scratch on her ankle. Wen Li finally wrestled her skirt back into place and sat up straight, about to warn him not to get any ideas. When she felt the cool touch on her ankle, she looked down. He was tending to a tiny scrape she'd gotten that morning. Mortification washed over her. All that squirming, and he was just being sweet. She felt like a complete idiot. The thought floated through her mind. Embarrassed, she clenched her fists and curled her toes. Duan Qiyu's gaze slid to her feet. Her rounded toes curled together. So cute it made his heart itch. On impulse, After applying the ointment, he slid his hand over her foot and gently pried apart her curled toes with his fingers. The unfamiliar sensation shot through her, and she let out a small gasp. When she looked again, his long, elegant fingers were intertwined with her short, rounded toes, held tight, like fingers laced together. When Li's brain short-circuited, her face burned. Who interlaced fingers like this? Wen Li was so shocked she couldn't speak, and then a wave of intense embarrassment washed over her. She struggled to pull her foot back, but her foot and Duan Qiyu's hand were locked together tightly. Her language system completely short-circuited, and words just tumbled out. "Let go. You jerk. Pervert." He released her on his own. Just as Wen Li tried to pull her leg free, he grabbed her calf and yanked her down, instantly closing the distance between them. Wen Li found her wrists pinned above her head as he leaned over her. She met his gaze. His handsome, cold face was tinged with red. Most of his aloof and noble bearing gone, he looked like a celestial being who'd tasted the mortal world. No longer distant or indifferent. Laughter shimmered in his ink-black eyes, which had once been as still as a deep pool. Wen Li felt like she was trapped in a web woven from 1,000 silk threads, enclosed in the small space defined by Duan Qiyu. He parted his thin lips, his voice clear and cool. "I just wanted to hold my baby's foot. Oh, you have to hate me for that." Wen Li froze. She realized Duan Qiyu was acting a little innocent, or rather, he had the potential to play the coy card. Staring at his impossibly handsome face, she stammered, "I don't hate you." As she spoke, her eyes landed on his reddened lips. Her throat moved as she swallowed, and deep inside, she wondered when those lips would come down on hers. This man's taste was something you never forgot after just one try. She'd realized that since that night 2 months ago, beauty was like fine wine, intoxicating and addictive. Duan Qiyu's phoenix eyes narrowed slightly as he noticed how his good looks affected his lover, and the curve of his lips deepened. A playful glint danced in his dark eyes. "Baby, what are you thinking?" he asked, knowing the answer. "I want a kiss." Wen Li's pupils contracted. Crap, she'd actually said that out loud. Her face burned with embarrassment. In a panic, she tried to push him away, but her pinned wrists barely moved before his kiss crashed down like a sudden storm. The moment his lips met hers, the sensation swept through her like a violent wind, holding back the force that could tear her apart. Duan Qiyu let out a breathy groan that sent shivers through Wen Li's entire body. This man was absolutely bewitching. After a deep kiss, he pulled her into his arms and sat up partway. He held her tightly, as if she were the rib he'd lost. The embrace didn't last long. He pressed a light kiss to her forehead. "We should go. It's almost rush hour, and someone might see us." The heat that had just started to fade from Wen Li's face rushed back instantly. All her rationality returned. "Hurry up and leave." Duan Qiyu let out a soft laugh. Wen Li suggested they keep the news of their marriage certificate private for now. She still needed some courage to face what would happen once it was public. Once she and Duan Qiyu came out as a couple, Duan Jingming's reaction would be the first problem. Wen Li didn't need to guess. She knew he'd lose his mind. She didn't dare think about whether the brothers would end up enemies. Besides Duan Jingming, Wen Li also had to consider the Wen family. Postponing the wedding could keep them from showing up for now. But if they found out she'd married Duan Qiyu, they'd probably be overjoyed and start making outrageous demands, mouths wide open like hungry lions. The industries and connections Duan Qiyu held were far beyond anything Duan Jingming had ever had. Compared to the blood they'd sucked from Duan Jingming in the past, she could only imagine what they'd try with Duan Qiyu. Even though he'd told her not to worry and that he wouldn't give the Wen family a single benefit without her consent, Wen Li knew exactly what her parents were like. they'd find ways to squeeze benefits from the Duan family through various angles. If not through Duan Qiyu, then through the Duan family elders, or by using the marriage connection to exploit the Duan family's network for themselves. In short, it was unrealistic to completely cut ties. Wen Li felt helpless, but had to accept it. As he drove, Duan Qiyu tried to comfort her. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. Whatever happens, I'm here. Since you chose me, whether it's my brother or your family, I won't let anyone hurt you. His words gave Wen Li a huge boost of confidence. Having someone to back you up was the greatest luck in life, and warmth surged through her heart. But she wasn't a delicate flower in a greenhouse that couldn't withstand storms. Wen Li's expression relaxed as she smiled. Thank you. Eugene, I'm okay on my end now. Duan Qiyu curved his lips, his voice warm and firm. Good. Leave everything else to me. At a coffee shop in the city center, Jiang Wantong sat with a gloomy expression, waiting for someone. The wind chime jingled, and she looked up with a bright smile, only for her pupils to contract as a familiar figure sat down across from her. He Xiao. How did you get so tan? Jiang Wantong's smile felt forced. Tio put it nicely. He was tanned. In reality, he looked a lot worse. In just over a month, his skin, once pampered and smooth, had become rough. The most obvious change was that he was much darker. He Zhao's face reddened, not from shyness but embarrassment. Luckily, with his darker skin, it wasn't too noticeable. He lied. Yeah. I went to boot camp for a month. Huh. Jiang Wantong blinked in surprise. Aren't you the one who hates exercise the most? He Zhao's breath caught, and his eyes flickered. No choice. My family forced me. Forced he was, but not to boot camp. To a pig farm in the countryside. He didn't know what Duan Qiyu had told his grandfather, but the old man had sent 4 bodyguards to escort him to the countryside to feed pigs. Not allowed back in the capital until he'd done a full month. Anyone who pleaded for him would join him. With that decree, no one spoke up, and he was shipped out of the capital under the bodyguard's escort. He, the young master of the He family, had sweltered in the heat, wearing a sweat-soaked undershirt, working in a stinking pigsty. It had been a few days since he got back, but he still felt like he smelled like pig manure. There was no way he was letting Wantong know about such a humiliating thing. Jiang Wantong didn't know much about the He family, so she didn't doubt his story. Today, she'd asked to meet him for a very important reason. Yesterday, Duan Jingming hadn't explicitly called off their 3-year agreement, but he'd told her the wedding was canceled, and no doubt it was because of some problem with Wen Li that made him back out. Now she needed outside help. Jiang Wantong stirred her coffee and let out a heavy sigh, successfully drawing He Zhao's attention. What's wrong, Wantong? Nothing. You clearly look like something's up. That we're friends. Why can't you tell me? He Zhao's tone grew heavier. She stopped stirring and looked up at him, her voice dripping with grievance. Jingming was supposed to marry me this month, but now he's called off the engagement because of Wen Li. He Xiao. Why won't Wen Li just leave me alone? She ruined things between Jingming and me once before, and now she's doing it again. Can you think of something to make Wen Li back off? At the sound of Wen Li's name, He Zhao's expression darkened, and a flash of resentment crossed his eyes. That troublemaker Wen Li, if it weren't for her, he'd never have been sent to feed pigs. Duan Qiyu must really treat her like a little sister. Just because he said a few words about her, he got stuck with that disgusting punishment. As angry as he was, He Xiao also knew the gap between him and Duan Qiyu. He'd decided to just stay out of Wen Li's way from now on. He frowned, his tone helpless. Wantong, it's not that I don't want to help you figure something out, but Wen Li's backed by the Duan family. There's nothing I can do to her. Hearing this, Jiang Wantong's expression stiffened. She hadn't expected that the man who used to blindly help her was now weighing pros and cons. Her eyes dimmed, but in a flash, a new idea came to her. He shall, since we can't do anything about Wen Li, can you help me with something else? Name it. Help me fake a pregnancy test. A flicker of shock crossed He Xiao's eyes. You're trying to trap him with a baby. He didn't say it outright, but the accusation was clear. Jiang Wantong didn't flinch. That's right. If I'm pregnant, my body can't handle an abortion. Once Jingming finds out, he'll have to marry me. And if Wen Li finds out I'm carrying his child, she might finally back off. This is the best plan. You have to help me that you're the only one who can. Her scheme was clean and brutal. Fake the pregnancy, rush him to the altar, then stage a convenient miscarriage later. The lie would vanish, and she'd collect a wave of sympathy. Her health was fragile to begin with. Losing a baby would be completely believable, but she needed He Xiao to make it work. His family owned the best private hospital in the capital. That He Xiao frowned. Is it worth it, Wantong? I love you. Duan Jingming doesn't. Why won't you give me a chance? At least with me, you wouldn't have to work this hard. Jiang Wantong lowered her eyes. There's no logic in love. That I love Jingming. That I'm sorry. That wasn't entirely a lie. She had fallen for Duan Jingming at first sight. Even knowing he had a childhood sweetheart he was fiercely protective of, she believed no wall was too high for a determined woman to climb. As she'd managed it. She'd become his girlfriend. But it didn't stick. The guy seemed to be with her on a whim. The second his sweetheart protested, he tossed her aside. Jiang Wantong wasn't the type to give up once she set her sights on something. She wanted it, and she would have it. Besides, Duan Jingming outclassed every man she knew in every possible way. That He Xiao wasn't even in the same league. Now that she had a shot at the real prize, why would she settle? A flicker of contempt passed through her lowered eyes. That He Xiao didn't catch it. He swallowed yet another rejection and forced out the words. Fine, but this is the last time I help you. Once you marry Duan Jingming, we're done. Maybe the past month had matured him without him noticing. He was born into privileged. He didn't need to stay hung up on one woman. Someone else would come along eventually. Jiang Wantong's expression stayed guarded. She bit her lip, then looked up at him with practiced sincerity. Thank you, He Xiao. I hope you find your happiness soon. He Xiao gave a small, tired smile and stood to leave. No one waited forever. Especially not a man like him, raised in luxury, with women always circling. Jiang Wantong wasn't happy about losing a devoted pawn, but she didn't regret it either. She deserved better. He Xiao wasn't good enough. That evening, Duan Qiyu had dinner with Wen Li, dropped her off at home, then drove straight to the family estate. Both his parents were waiting for him in the study. He walked in to find their expressions grim. They hadn't said much over the phone, but whatever this was, it was serious. Duan Qiyu quickly ruled out a work crisis. He ran the entire Duan Empire now. If something business-related had blown up, he would have been the first to know. That he sat down calmly. Dad, Mom, what's going on? Lan Yuding hesitated, then took a breath. Yesterday Bai Wei mentioned you have someone you like. Is that true? It is. How could you? She almost blurted out, like a man, but the words jammed in her throat. She shot a look at her husband. His face was dark as a coal stove. He looked like he'd rather swallow glass than speak. When she'd told him the rumor, he'd smashed an entire tea set, and then gone completely silent. Duan Qiyu frowned slightly. Mom, what exactly are you trying to ask? Lan Yuding inhaled sharply, her expression pained. She studied her handsome son and tried a more indirect approach. Are you the one on top? Or on the bottom? Duan Qiyu's frown deepened. Mom, top or bottom? Just say what you mean. Lan Yuding's face flushed. When you and your special someone, you know, Who's on top and who's on bottom? The meaning finally landed. Duan Qiyu looked genuinely puzzled. He couldn't fathom why his mother was curious about that. Still, he answered honestly. We haven't done anything. Lan Yuding's entire body sagged with relief. Good. Her son wasn't in too deep yet. They could still fix this. She shot her husband a look that screamed lay down the law. They had to make Duan Qiyu give up that man tonight. Just as Duan Qiyu lifted his teacup for a sip, his father Duan Qianfeng slammed a hand on the desk and bellowed, "Break up with that man immediately." The cup hit the floor. Tea went down the wrong pipe. Cough, cough. Duan Qiyu had never been so off balance in his life that he cleared his throat and stared at his parents in disbelief. Lan Yuding took his shock as defiance. She jumped straight into a heartfelt plea. "You, your father and I have never asked you for anything. Listen to us. Cut ties with that man. Girls are wonderful. Soft, sweet, so nice to hold. You just haven't spent enough time with them. Let me tell you, stop." Duan Qiyu cut her off, his eyes narrowing. "Who told you I like men? The person I love is a woman." Both his parents froze. Then Lan Yuding's face hardened with fury. How could Duan Jingming get something like that so wrong? He didn't even check properly. Duan Qiyu's gaze turned cold. Duan Jingming was behind this. That blind date that made Wen Li misunderstand him. That had to be his doing too. He was only now scrambling to guard against Duan Qiyu. Too late for that. Duan Qianfeng snapped out of it first, his entire demeanor shifting to giddy delight. "Qiyu, which family is she from? When can you bring her home to meet us?" Lan Yuding crowded in just as eagerly. "What's her name? Give me her birth date and time that I'll find a master to check your compatibility right away." Duan Qiyu's gaze swept across his parents' expectant faces. He remained perfectly composed. "You've already met her." "Oh." Their eyes lit up in unison. "Who is she?" Duan Qiyu blinked slowly. "I'll bring her home tomorrow that you'll see then." Lan Yuding beamed. "Wonderful. I'll have everything prepared with your father." Duan Qiyu allowed himself a small, knowing smile. "One more thing that we got the certificate today." "What?" They both shouted. Lan Yuding recovered first. "Getting married is such a big decision. Why didn't you discuss it with us?" Duan Qiyu stood up, his tone casual but final. "You'll love her." They watched their son leave, burning with curiosity. What kind of woman had captivated their eldest son so completely? He'd gone ahead and tied the knot without hesitation, and he was absolutely certain they'd approve. Their anticipation shot through the roof. They couldn't wait to meet their daughter-in-law the next day. That same night, Duan Jingming was in a loud, packed bar when his phone rang that he glanced at the screen. "Come home for lunch tomorrow." "Got it." Lan Yuding started to explain the reason, but her youngest son had already hung up. With the pounding bass and roaring crowd noise in the background, she didn't bother calling back. He'd find out tomorrow anyway in no rush. Duan Jingming pocketed his phone and tapped the guy sitting beside him. "Come outside with me." "Sure." They stepped out of the bar. Duan Jingming fished out a cigarette, put it between his lips, and offered the pack to Qi Ming. Qi Ming flicked his lighter, lit Duan Jingming's cigarette, then his own. "What's up, Duan Ji?" Duan Jingming blew out a stream of smoke. "Call Wen Li for me. Tell her I'm drinking so hard my stomach's bleeding, and I'm refusing to go to the hospital. Get her to come talk me into it." "No problem, calling now." Back at her apartment, Wen Li had just finished showering when her phone lit up with an unfamiliar local number. She hesitated, then answered. "Who is this?" "It's me. Qi Ming." Wen Li pulled up his face in her memory point, one of Duan Jingming's crew. "What do you want?" "Duan Ji's been drinking. Internal bleeding. We think that he's at party bar, and he absolutely refuses to go to the hospital. Can you come down here?" Wen Li's grip tightened on the phone. You've got the wrong person. His girlfriend is Jiang Wantong. Qiming thought fast. I know, but he's stonewalling everyone. And Wantong's phone isn't going through. You're the only one he ever listens to anymore. When Li's jaw clenched, Qiming pressed his advantage. Do me a solid here. You two were childhood sweethearts, right? Just because things ended doesn't mean you're enemies. The phrase, not enemies, made her hesitate. Tomorrow, she would officially become Duan Jingming's sister-in-law. She couldn't just ignore this. I'll be there soon, she said flatly, and ended the call. Wen Li changed into her clothes and hailed a cab to the bar where the party was happening. Qiming was waiting at the entrance. Where is he? Inside, in a private room. She followed him down the hallway until they stopped outside one of the doors. He won't let anyone in. I'll wait here. You go in first and try to talk to him. Wen Li didn't think twice. She stepped forward and pushed the door open. The room was pitch black. The second she crossed the threshold, a hand slammed her against the wall. The lights flicked on, and Duan Jingming stood in front of her. His brows were raised, his eyes clear and sharp. He didn't look drunk at all, let alone like someone with a bleeding ulcer that she'd been tricked. This guy was getting more and more shameless. He braced his hands on either side of her, boxing her in. There was still space between their bodies, but the weight of his presence pressed down on her like a cage. Without a word, she slapped him. Crack. His head snapped to the side. He ran his tongue over the inside of his cheek, let out a dry laugh, then turned his gaze back to her. He grabbed her wrist and lifted her hand to his face again. Crack, crack, crack. Each hit landed sharp and clean. She didn't have time to react. He was forcing her to slap him over and over. When she finally yanked her hand free, she shoved him, putting some distance between them. Are you insane? Let you blow off some steam. He said it like it was nothing, that reckless smile tugging at his lips. Her heart went cold. If you think this is going to make me forgive you, you're wrong. I stopped being angry at you a long time ago, because I don't love you anymore. His smile froze, then twisted into something mocking. Ali, we've known each other since we were 8 years old. We've been apart for 2 months, and you expect me to believe you just fell out of love? Who do you think you're fooling? His face changed in an instant. He punched the wall next to her ear. Her lashes fluttered hard, but she bit back the words about already being married to Duan Qiyu. If she said that now, it would only push him further. Smart girls knew when to keep their mouths shut. She let out a breath. Calm down. He dropped his hand. The rage had numbed him to the pain, but his eyes locked on her like a predator. How the hell am I supposed to calm down? Do you know my brother likes you? She blinked, her heart seizing. He knew. The shock on her face made him think she was surprised that Duan Qiyu had feelings for her. He stared her down. Wen Li, I get that you're mad at me, that I deserve it. I'm trying to fix things now. But I'm telling you, stay away from my brother. If you don't, his voice dropped. I can't promise what I'll do. There was something terrifying in his eyes, something obsessive. She gripped the hem of her dress. The version of Duan Jingming she'd come back to was becoming a stranger every day. He wouldn't listen to reason. He only cared about what he wanted. Never mind anyone else. The wave of exhaustion washed over her. She stayed quiet. The cold silence in the room started to crack. Seconds passed, maybe minutes. They stood there, like two lines that had crossed and now drifted apart. That he reached out to tilt her chin up. She pulled away. This time, he didn't get angry. His voice softened. Did I scare you? Second brother's sorry. She didn't respond. He raised an eyebrow, then shoved his bloody hand in front of her face, almost like a peace offering. Look, I'm hurt. Don't you feel bad for me? Ali, be good. Second brother really knows he messed up this time. Give me one more chance, okay? She met his eyes. You only get one life. Why should you get 2 chances? He choked on his words. then shot back. Other people only get one, but we've already had two. Think of this as a test for us. She rolled her eyes. That's your idea, not mine. I'm tired that I'm going home. I'll drive you. She knew arguing was useless. He'd just force it. She didn't want another fight, so she opened the door and walked out. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, wiped his hand like it was nothing, and tossed it aside before following. Back at the apartment, Wen Li lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. That conversation with Duan Jingming had been a waste of breath. He clearly had no idea what was happening tomorrow. She let out a heavy sigh. Tomorrow was going to be a battle, but at least she wasn't fighting it alone. With Qiyu around, Duan Jingming couldn't do anything too crazy. She closed her eyes and let sleep take her. The next day, around noon, Wen Li walked out of the art troupe and climbed into Duan Qiyu's car. The driver pulled away. She turned to look at him. He was in a suit, every strand of hair perfectly in place. His sharp features were softened by a smile, and his eyes were bright as they settled on her. Give me your hand. She held out her right hand. He took a ring and slid it slowly onto her ring finger. The custom ring took 2 days. Sorry for making you wait, baby. The wedding had been rushed, and he didn't want to settle for something off the shelf, so he'd put the work in. Do you like it? A smile spread across her eyes. I love it. She studied the ring, noticing the diamond was wrapped in a little flower-shaped setting. Then she glanced at his. She grabbed his hand without thinking, examining it closely. She didn't catch the way his body went still for a split second. His ring was a plain band, but there was a tiny flower engraved on it. What flower is that? Pear blossom. He smiled. Her heart skipped. Heat crawled up her ears. He kept going. It also means something else. Our first kiss was in the greenhouse. Her fingers trembled. She thought about how, in her past life, when she was still his sister-in-law, he had acted like he didn't know anything. If it had been her, she wouldn't have been able to hide it. What are you thinking? His voice washed over her like spring water. She let go of his hand and looked him in the eyes. Qiyu, I want to ask you something. Go ahead. All those years, how did you keep your feelings locked away so perfectly? If you hadn't told me yourself, I never would have believed you liked me. He smiled faintly, a touch of bitterness in it. I wasn't perfect. You just weren't paying attention. She was stunned as he continued. Every time you ate at the Duan house, I made sure to sit across from you. During winter and summer breaks, when you came over, I found reasons to stay home. Every time we ran into each other, it was on purpose. She didn't know what to say. Images from the past flashed through her mind. She really had missed so many details. All she had ever seen was Duan Jingming. Duan Qiyu had been something untouchable, a flower on a mountain peak, something to admire from afar. His intensity only made her more afraid to look deeper in her past life. Even after 5 years of marriage to Duan Jingming, Duan Qiyu was still single. He'd been a silent spectator, burying everything inside. When she put herself in his shoes, her heart ached. Thank you, Qiyu. I won't let you down. He reached over and ruffled her hair. Follow your heart. Don't put pressure on yourself. A secret crush is a one-person war. That I'm just grateful that you gave my love a home. She was frozen. The heat in his gaze was almost tangible, like it was burning a hole straight through her chest. How are you so good at saying things like that? She mumbled, her voice tiny. But he was close enough to hear. He let out a low laugh. That's not sweet talk, that's the truth. His voice curled at the end, wrapping around the words like a promise. Something in her broke loose. She hugged his waist, instinctively pressing her face into his chest. That a low grunt escaped from above her, and she snapped back to reality. Her cheeks burned. She yanked herself away and sat up straight, like she'd been electrocuted. That move had been basically an invitation. Seeing how flustered she was, his smile softened. It's fine to we're married. Husband and wife. She still couldn't get used to the word. Flushed, she changed the subject. When we get to the Duan house, I'm worried Duan Jingming will cause trouble. Duan Qiyu took her hand and laced their fingers together. Don't worry that I'll handle it. 30 minutes later, the car pulled into the old Duan estate. From a distance, she could see a crowd gathered by the entrance. Wen Li had no idea what he was up to. Since her rebirth, she'd found him harder and harder to read that a small bowl of sticky rice ate treasure dessert appeared in front of her. She looked up. Duan Jingming stood across the table, the corners of his mouth lifted in a forced smile. What are you staring at your second brother for? Eat it while it's hot. He sounded like the loving older brother he used to be. Wen Li blinked, momentarily dazed. Then a hand reached over from beside her and moved the bowl away. Duan Qiyu ladled a fresh one and set it next to her plate. She snapped back to reality and met his eyes. His deep gaze held a restrained jealousy, but also tenderness. She picked up the bowl he'd given her and started eating. Her choice was clear. Duan Jingming let out a cold laugh and shot a glare at his brother. Duan Qiyu returned a flat look and went back to his meal. The two brothers clashed 2 or 3 times during lunch, and every time, Wen Li silently chose Duan Qiyu. After the meal, Lan Yuding pulled Wen Li aside for a private talk. "Ali, I never thought you'd marry a you. Tell me honestly, do you really like him, or did you marry him because you knew he liked you?" What Lan Yuding really wanted to know was whether Wen Li was using her eldest son to spite the younger one. Wen Li understood the concern. "Auntie, I'm not angry at second brother anymore. He's looked out for me all these years, and I hope he can let go soon. Between us, there's still the bond of childhood friendship. As for Yuji, I do like him, the kind of like between a man and a woman. Right now, maybe he likes me more, but my feelings for him grow a little every day. Getting married was something we thought through carefully that I hope you and Uncle Feng can bless us." Lan Yuding's heart softened. She wrapped an arm around Wen Li's shoulders. "Silly girl. As long as you two are truly together, your father and I will always give you our blessing. Jingming wronged you, that's our failure as parents. Don't worry, your father and I will talk to him, he'll accept it soon." Warmth flooded Wen Li's chest. "I know, and I'll do my best to keep them from fighting." That side of the house was warm and peaceful. Over on Duan Jingming's end, he overheard something that made his blood run cold. Jiang Wantong was pregnant. Duan Jingming drove straight to her apartment. The second he walked in, she thrust the test results into his hands. "I just had the exam today. The doctor said my body can't handle an abortion." She searched his face. "Jingming, what are we going to do?" He stared at the report. The confirmation blurred in front of his eyes. He knew her body was too weak for that procedure. But if Wen Li ever found out Jiang Wantong was carrying his child, she'd never forgive him. Not in this lifetime. The devastation on his face was so complete that Jiang Wantong's eyes went cold. She pitched her voice high and brittle, right on the edge of tears. "I know you don't want this, it's fine that I'll get rid of it." She swallowed hard. "And if I don't make it off the operating table, I hope you'll look after my parents back home, they're getting old." She spun toward the door, he grabbed her arm. "Slow down, I was just thinking." She folded herself against him instantly, arms circling his waist, voice dropping to something soft and sweet. "Jingming, I know I'll never mean as much to you as Wen Li does that I don't care. I just want these 3 years with you." She pressed her cheek to his chest. "This baby is mine, that I won't let it threaten your relationship with her. I'll tell everyone the father is someone else." Any man would have cracked hearing that, especially Duan Jingming, who still had feelings for her. But soft as he was, He didn't give an inch. He patted her head, his voice low. Don't worry that I'm not abandoning you, or the child. Wen Li is Wen Li. You're you. I can't marry you. But I'll take care of both of you. Just, she can never find out. In his arms, Jiang Wantong's expression twisted dark. She couldn't believe it. Even a baby couldn't move him. He was still holding out for Wen Li. Would he only give up if Wen Li were dead? The thought startled even her. Murder was illegal. She'd end up in prison too. A blade in someone else's hand. Then Suhu's face flashed through her mind. He was the kind of man who could kill without flinching. But she had no idea where he was now. She steadied her breathing. She pushed the murderous thought down and answered in a muffled voice. I won't say a word. No, she wouldn't say a word if she didn't leak the pregnancy herself. How else would the Duan family force him to marry her? Jiang Wantong's lips pressed thin against his shirt, hatred burning behind her eyes. That same night, Duan Qiyu's personal social media account, silent for years, posted something. 2 Open marriage certificates, red covers, bright, undeniable. The caption read, In the name of love, I crown this life. Sun and moon with you, morning and evening, Li Yu. The internet exploded. Someone screenshot it and threw it onto a public forum. It hit the trending list within minutes. Duan Qiyu was the eldest son of the Jingdu Duan family, head of Duan Group, holder of multiple new technology patents. His accomplishments had been making headlines since he was a teenager, and over the years, his reputation had only grown. But as an adult, he'd kept himself completely out of the public no interviews, no appearances outside of certain international summits. Nearly nothing about his private life had ever leaked, until now, and his wife, Wen Li, was no mystery either. Youngest lead pianist at the Jingdu art troupe, multiple international art awards, just as fiercely private as he was. A financial titan, an elite artist, a breathtaking couple. There was no universe in which this didn't blow up. Wen Li had just stepped out of the shower when her phone rang. Sun Yin. Li Bao, you're famous. What? Duan Qiyu posted the announcement. It's trending everywhere. Wen Li switched apps, found his post, and a smile broke across her face. He'd asked her earlier that day if he could make it public. She'd said yes without thinking twice. They had the marriage certificate. She'd already been to the Duan family home. There was no reason to hide that for her own family. They'd find out eventually anyway. She was ready. She brought the phone back to her ear, still smiling. Just saw it. Sun Yin's grin was practically audible. Okay, tell me everything. How did Duan Jingming react when he found out you're his sister-in-law now? Wen Li's smile faded. Her voice dropped. He lost it. Why you kicked him. The Duan elders were there, so it didn't go too far. Sun Yin let out a satisfied snort. Good. Wish I could have seen his face in person. She paused. Oh, and I heard something interesting. A friend of mine said she spotted Jiang Wantong and he Xiao at the hospital today, gynecology department. Wen Li frowned. Why would Jiang Wantong be in gynecology, and why he Xiao instead of Duan Jingming? That's what I'm saying. Sun Yin's voice sparkled with mischief. What if Jiang Wantong's pregnant, and he Xiao's the father? Wen Li just blinked. She didn't know Jiang Wantong well, but from the few times their paths had crossed, she'd gotten a clear read on her character. He Xiao was so far beneath Jiang Wantong's standards, it wasn't even worth discussing. She'd never carry his child. That kind of stain wouldn't wash out. Sun Yin seemed to reach the same conclusion mid-thought. Yeah, okay, that's ridiculous. She worked way too hard to sink her claws into Duan Jingming, but she's not stupid enough to cheat on him. Wen Li shifted topics. Nian, how are things with He Nian Ge? Did he agree to be with you? The second the words landed, Sun Yin's energy deflated. He didn't agree. What about that night you two? Wen Li let the sentence hang, and Sun Yin knew exactly which night she meant, the one after the party. She cut in. Nothing happened that night. My mom called, and my little uncle backed off all over again. Her voice had gone quiet. Wen Li softened. Give him time. Your mom treated him like a brother for so many years that he can't just ignore what she'd think. Sun Yin took a breath, then let it out. When she spoke again, her tone had brightened. I know. These last 2 years, I've been chipping away at his walls. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with where we are. Good, I'm glad you see it that way. Wen Li wanted to keep talking, but the doorbell rang. Nian Nian, something came up. I'll call you back. Okay. She hung up and crossed to the door. Through the peephole, 2 figures stood in the hallway. 2 people she had not expected to see tonight. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A new message. She ignored it. She took a breath and opened the door. The 2 of them stared at her, faces rigid, jaws tight. They stepped inside without a word, walked straight to the living room, and before they even sat down, the interrogation began. When Xiangsong opened with an attack, kneel. Wen Li stood straight, her spine like steel. I let you in because we're blood. If this is how you're going to act, then we have nothing to say to each other. His face soured at the soft rebuff. Beside him, Chu Jing nudged his arm. Remember why we came. His stiff features twitched. They had one objective today. Pull Wen Li back into the family's orbit. His eyes darkened. You married Duan Qiyu and didn't bother to tell us? Your mother and I had to hear it from strangers. Does that sit right with you? Wen Li's lips curved with mockery. You drugged your own daughter. Does that sit right with you? Both of them went rigid. They had tried to push her into Duan Jingming's bed. Instead, she ended up with Duan Qiyu at a massive upgrade. But it only highlighted how badly they had screwed up. When neither answered, Wen Li pressed on. You know exactly why I didn't tell you about my marriage. That I don't need to spell it out. Chu Jing's brows pinched. Know what? We are your parents. Blood is thicker than water. You think freezing us out solves anything? Her tone softened as she shifted tactics. Look, we didn't come here to fight. You married Duan Qiyu. Fine. Just live your life and let things go back to normal with the family. When Xiangsong stayed silent, that was the goal they shared. Wen Li had expected the performance. Her voice stayed cold. I can't cut the blood tie, but I get to decide whether I want contact with the Wen family. And don't think you can use me. That I will not bring the Wen family a single benefit. Not one. Slap. When Xiangsong's palm cracked against the coffee table. How did the Wen family raise such an ungrateful brat? You think I can't do anything about this? If I go public with how you've behaved, your career, your life, even your marriage will take a hit. People will point fingers. They'll curse your name. He bared his teeth. Are you sure you want to burn this bridge? Wen Li didn't flinch. Then you'd better be ready to deal with the consequences of offending Duan Qiyu. Her voice was quiet, nearly flat, but the words hit Wen Xiangsong like a slap. His face cycled through red, purple, and something close to black. His blood pressure spiked. His vision swam. The living room felt like a boiling pot, steam rising, punctuated by his ragged breathing. Chu Jing's eyes darted. She reached for the emotional card she hated playing. Shaoli, we know you hold a grudge, but you came from my body. The Wen family raised you, fed you, clothed you. We made mistakes, yes, but how can a child hold a grudge against her parents? Her voice was gentle, but her expression was charity offered with reluctance. She couldn't quite hide it. Ever since Wen Li was a child, Chu Jing's looks had landed somewhere between disgust and cold indifference, sometimes anger. Warmth had always been a luxury that in her past life. Wen Li had wept over that. Now she felt nothing. People said filial piety could crush you. Not her. Not anymore. Her face gave away nothing. You gave birth to me. The Wen family raised me, that's true, but those were your choices. Everyone pays for their choices. You treated me badly. Cutting ties is the price you pay. When Xiangsong snapped, who treated you badly? What more do you want from us? Wen Li let out a cold laugh. Her eyes sharpened. Good question. How did you treat Wen Ling? And how did you treat me? When I was 8, I pulled him out of the pool. Do you remember what you gave me for that? You gave me a slap, hard enough to leave a mark. A flicker of guilt crossed Wen Xiangsong's eyes. Later, after Wen Ling calmed down, he had told them the truth, but by then the slap was already done. They chalked it up to her punishment for not watching her brother properly. Chu Jing shared the same unspoken logic, but she felt no guilt at all, only righteousness. Your father hit you because he got it wrong in the moment. But even if you saved Ling Ling, you weren't watching him before he fell in. You're his older sister. You shouldn't treat him so carelessly. Wen Li's patience with their twisted logic snapped clean. Even if they told her the sun rose in the west, she wouldn't argue anymore. Get out of my house, now. The sudden eviction caught them off guard. They froze. Their mission had failed, and things were worse now than when they arrived. They didn't look inward. They blamed Wen Li's cruelty. When Xiangsong stood, glowering. You won't acknowledge us, fine, but the Duan family will not follow your foolishness. Chu Jing echoed him. That's right. Duan Qiyu is a big man that he wouldn't dare refuse his in-laws. Wen Li's fists clenched, her voice rose. Get out. Chu Jing rolled her eyes. Fine. Find a ass if we wanted to come here in the first place. She grabbed Wen Xiangsong's arm and headed for the door. They stopped short when it opened. Wen Li looked over. Duan Qiyu stood in the hallway, his gaze finding hers. When Xiangsong's rigid face broke into a smile. Qiyu, come in, sit down. Yes, come inside and talk. Chu Jing stepped aside. Duan Qiyu walked in. When Xiangsong and Chu Jing turned to follow, but Wen Li blocked their path. My house is not open to you. Get out. Humiliated by his daughter in front of Duan Qiyu, when Xiangsong's fury peaked, he raised his hand to slap her. They were too close. Wen Li couldn't dodge. Her mind blanked. She froze. The blow never landed. She saw Duan Qiyu gripping Wen Xiangsong's wrist. His dark eyes held a storm barely leashed. The air around him turned heavy, oppressive. When Xiangsong tried to pull free but couldn't, facing this younger man. An involuntary fear crept through him that he growled. Let go. This is Wen family business. Duan Qiyu shoved his hand away. His voice came out cold. Family business? Wen Li is my wife. Who dares touch her? The pressure crushed the room. When Xiangsong clenched his fist and stayed silent, Chu Jing stared at Duan Qiyu, disbelief twisting her features. Mr. Duan, we are your in-laws. Is this the Duan family's upbringing? Wen Li opened her mouth to fire back, but Duan Qiyu took her hand. His palm was warm that it smoothed the chaos twisting inside her. He said, your status depends entirely on my wife's attitude that I asked for the Duan family's upbringing. That's none of your concern. Let me offer you some advice. If you want the Wen family to stay intact, don't upset my wife. Next time, I will make sure the Wen family disappears from the capital. His voice was crisp, magnetic. His sharp brows carried an innate authority. He spoke without hurry, utterly composed. Wen Li's eyes burned. Her nose prickled. She refused to cry in front of them, so she turned and wrapped her arms around Duan Qiyu's waist, burying her face against his chest. The misery she had buried so deep, displaced for so long, finally found somewhere to land. Duan Qiyu's heart tightened. He placed his hand on the back of her head, soothing her. Then he issued his own eviction. Without an ounce of kindness, out. When Xiangsong and Chu Jing didn't dare say another word, they finally saw the truth. Duan Qiyu was completely wrapped around Wen Li's finger. Those two were a team. They had thought Wen Li's marriage to Duan Qiyu would launch the Wen family to a whole new level. Now it looked like they had been better off with Duan Jingming. At least he acknowledged the family and didn't mind helping out. Rage clawed at their throats, but neither dared let it out. They stormed out of the apartment. As they yanked the door to slam it behind them, Duan Qiyu pressed both palms over Wen Li's ears to bang. The door crashed shut. The tension in the room dissolved into a soft, quiet warmth. Duan Qiyu lowered his hands from her ears. Wen Li loosened her grip around his waist and started to step back. Before she could, an arm snaked around her waist and lifted her off the ground. Ah! A small gasp escaped her by the time she registered what was happening. He was carrying her koala style toward the sofa. Instinctively, she looped her arms around his neck. The position was exactly the same as 5 years ago. That night in the greenhouse, he had carried her just like this to the couch. The images merged. Wen Li tightened her hold without thinking. Their clothes rustled with every step. The thin summer fabric let them feel the heat of each other's skin. The quiet warmth in the air shifted into something far more intimate. Duan Qiyu sat down on the sofa, but instead of setting her beside him, he settled her right onto his lap. He didn't pull away. He just held her there, close in his embrace. His voice, cool and clear, sounded above her head. I came late. You've been through enough. Wen Li felt her cheeks flush. It's not your fault. You didn't know they were coming tonight. She leaned back to meet his eyes. Hey, how did you know to come? Duan Qiyu lowered his gaze. I sent you a few texts. You never replied. I got worried, so I came to check. Wen Li winced. Sorry that I saw them, but I wasn't in the mood to look at my phone. Why didn't you just call, though? I would have picked up. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. I missed you. Figured I'd come see you instead. The heat she'd just managed to cool surged right back into her face. Duan Qiyu always managed to say the most tender things with the most casual tone, and somehow, it drove her crazy every time. She ducked her head, flustered. But we just saw each other this afternoon. So I'm not allowed to miss you. Find out if my wife thinks I'm too clingy. I'll just... No. She cut him off fast. When she looked up, his expression was all teasing. He was messing with her again. Duan Qiyu laughed softly and pulled her closer. I didn't have the right to cling to you before. From now on, I'm doing it openly. His warm breath brushed the tip of her ear. Her ears burned crimson as she tucked herself deeper into his chest. The temperature in the room climbed. Suddenly, Wen Li remembered something. She pulled back a little. Oh, I need to tell you something. What? He looked into her eyes. I've claimed some new relatives. Huh? For a split second, Duan Qiyu thought she'd said she'd gotten engaged. His usual composed demeanor froze solid. Then he recovered and chuckled softly. Relatives. I almost thought I'd been dumped the minute I got the title. Wen Li blinked, caught on, and shot him a playful glare. She explained. I claimed a younger brother, Su. You know, the one who came to the theater performance with his girlfriend last time. He was desperate for me to be his sister, and I didn't hate the idea, so I said yes. Now he wants me to meet his parents so they can be my honorary aunt and uncle. What do you think of the Qin family? The Qins, Duan Qiyu pulled up the information in his mind. They founded Big Whale Group years ago. Both of them are straightforward people, and the family tree is simple that it's a good connection to make. They worked hard early on and had Su later in life. So he's the apple of their eye. If he wants you as his sister this badly, his parents will back him completely. Wen Li felt the reassurance settle in. Good. I'll text Su tomorrow. One family villa. Wen Ling lounged on the living room couch, phone in hand, deep in his game. When his parents walked in with faces like thunder, He lifted an eyebrow and grudgingly set the phone aside. What happened? Why does everyone look like they just lost a life? Chu Jing's bottled-up anger finally found a target. She practically spat at her son. That Wen Li. That girl is dead set on cutting us off. Your father and I went to see her, and she kicked us out. Wen Ling's jaw dropped. She wants to cut ties with us? When Xiangsong's voice was ice, she didn't just cut ties. She had Duan Qiyu threaten us. He said if we made Wen Li unhappy, they'd make the Wen family disappear from the city. Wen Ling froze that he'd still been stunned by the trending news hours ago. But Duan Qiyu, the legend of the city's elite circle, actually took orders from Wen Li. How had those two even gotten together and making the Wen family disappear? Did Wen Li really hate them that much? They were blood, direct blood. Too many questions crowded his mind, his thoughts in chaos. He grabbed his phone to call Wen Li he'd held back when he saw the wedding announcement. Now he couldn't if he needed to know what she was thinking. The call went through that a robotic female voice answered. Sorry, the number you dialed is temporarily unavailable. He tried for more times. Same result that he refused to believe it. He opened a messaging app and sent a text that read. Exclamation mark popped up immediately. The answer was clear. Wen Li had blocked him. That had never happened before. Shit. Fine. Cut ties that I don't need her as a sister anyway. He shouted, but his heart went cold that a nameless dread crawled up from his feet, clawing at his brain. Without another word to his parents, he ran to his room and slammed the door that he charged at the standing punching bag and started throwing wild, furious punches, muttering between breaths. You're really something, Wen Li. You cut off mom and dad, and now me too. What kind of sister are you? I didn't even get mad that you hid your wedding from me, and you're the one cutting me out. Afraid I'll mooch off you, huh? That's a joke. I don't give a damn. From now on, we each go our own way. BM, he threw one last punch, then collapsed on the floor, exhausted. The fear inside him turned into thick black fog, wrapping around him from every side. The boy's rebellious eyes held something dark and unreadable. 2 days later, Wen Li left to visit the Qin family. Before she walked out, Duan Qiyu called one last time to check. You're sure you don't want me to come with you? Wen Li smiled. No, I'm fine. This connection was personal. She had no idea how things would turn out with the Qins, and she didn't want to drag Duan Qiyu into it. Not after what happened with Duan Jingming and the Wens. She was terrified of repeating those mistakes. Even though the Qins were nothing like the Wens, and Duan Qiyu was nothing like Duan Jingming. Still, the wall around Wen Li's heart stood high. She wanted to keep her relationships one-sided as much as possible that it made them easier to manage. Fewer complications. Duan Qiyu didn't ask her to change her mind, that he understood exactly what she was doing. Even though a part of him felt disappointed that she wouldn't let him in more, but he respected her approach. Love wasn't just about possession. It was also about giving someone the space to be themselves. They agreed to have lunch together the next day, then hung up. Wen Li hailed a taxi and headed to the Chun residence as the car rolled into the villa neighborhood and approached the Chun gate. She spotted the entire family standing outside to welcome her. Her nerves spiked. The car stopped. Wen Li reached for the gift box on the seat beside her, but Chun Su had already run up and opened her door as he leaned in, his puppy dog eyes shining. With a grin, and called out without hesitation, "Sis." From big sister to just sis. One word changed everything. Before they'd formalized their sibling bond, Chun Su had called her big sister, all eager fanboy desperation. Now, with a crisp, clean sis, he sounded like a real little brother stepping into his role. Wen Li barely knew him, but that single word, his puppy dog expression, and the way he went out of his way to put her at ease melted her nerves on the spot. He was extending an olive branch, and she wasn't about to ignore it. She smiled, her voice warm and sweet. Chen Su. Chen Su's heart skipped. His grin stretched wider. If he'd had a tail, it would have been wagging. Wen Ling's sister was finally his sister, and she just called him Chen Su in that honeyed voice that he screamed internally. He was going to make damn sure this goddess became the happiest sister alive. The moment Wen Li stepped out of the car, Chen Su took the fancy gift box from her hands and led the way to the villa's entrance. His parents stared at their son's behavior. Was this their little terror? Was this the brat their relatives always complained about? And when had he ever been this eager, with a smile that bright? Both sets of eyes shifted to the girl behind him. She wore a white French-style dress, square neckline showing off elegant collarbones, long curly hair swaying with every step. Her features were striking, peach blossom eyes catching the light, no heavy makeup, but she was blinding. Every move she made was a pleasure to watch. The couple instantly understood why their son had been so determined to claim her as his sister. They never expected, past 60, to gain a new family member, and one their own son had brought them. Both of them silently gave him a thumbs up. Good job. The Chins welcomed Wen Li with warm hospitality. Noticing her slight discomfort, they dialed it back a notch. They settled in the living room. Wen Li untied the ribbon on the first gift box and handed it to Chen Jitsai. "Uncle, this is for you." He took it with a hearty laugh. "You didn't have to bring gifts, child." But his hands were already opening it, curiosity winning out. When the lid lifted, the man caught his breath. "This? Ali, how did you get this tea set?" Wen Li smiled. "It belonged to the teacher of a friend of mine. They were willing to part with it." That friend was Sun Yan. Wen Li had studied the information she got from Duan Qiyu and targeted the gift with precision. Chen Jitsai's little mustache twitched as he broke into a wide grin. "Good girl, you've got a real heart." The tea set had cost her 100,000. Peanuts to a CEO like him. But the set was priceless because you couldn't buy it anywhere. That was what made it precious. Wen Li handed the second box to Xian Mei. "Auntie, this is yours." The woman was just past 60, lines showing, but she had the energy of someone in her 30s. Neither of the Chins acted their age. Both were lively and direct. Xian Mei took the box, smiling as she opened it. Then her smile froze. She blinked. This, the complete second-generation skincare set from Ruishue Biotech. She slapped her thigh. "Oh, my memory. Ruishue Biotech is a subsidiary of the Duan Group." Wen Li's lips curved. "It's a gift from my husband that he hopes you'll like it." "Like it? I love it. I'm a loyal user of the first generation. Thank Mr. Duan for me." Xian Mei beamed. Ruishue Biotech primarily did AI drug research, but last year they'd launched a high-end skincare line that IT became an instant hit among the elite. Due to technology and raw material constraints, the price was top tier and supply was limited. Pre-orders were required before release. That a skincare set was nothing to Xian Mei financially. But this was an unreleased product. Without Wen Li, she wouldn't have gotten it. As they said, rarity made it precious. Wen Li handed the last small box to Chen Xiu. It was much smaller than the other two, and the whole family was curious what was inside. Chen Su took it happily. "Thanks, sis." He tore it open without waiting. A gilded premium membership card sat inside. The card was for Bosun International Trading's lifetime VIP program. Normally, you had to spend 10 million a year just to qualify for that card, with repeat purchases. But this one was lifetime. It meant even if he didn't spend that much annually, he'd get top-tier treatment at the store. For someone like him who loved networking and showing off, it was irresistible. Who didn't love having special privileges? "Sis, this is too much that I can't take it." He tried to hand it back. Wen Li pushed it toward him. "It's a gift from your brother-in-law. Keep it. Chen Su's grin stretched wide, his eyes crinkling into happy crescents. Thank you, sis and brother-in-law. Bosun International Trading was a joint venture Duan Qiyu and Shun Henian had launched back in college. The gifts for Xian Mei and Chen Su had both been Duan Qiyu's suggestions. Wen Li had initially refused flat out, but his words silenced her. You are my wife that I won't let anyone belittle you. So she'd accepted. How could she reject such obvious favoritism? Chen Jitsai, Xian Mei, and Chen Su all felt the warmth of the gifts in their hands. They hadn't expected Wen Li's sincerity to go this deep, as she'd clearly put thought into choosing something that fit each of them perfectly. And they knew without Wen Li, the famous Duan Qiyu wouldn't have bothered sending them a thing. They were relieved they'd scheduled this adoption a week ago. If it had been today, people might have suspected they were using Wen Li to get close to Duan Qiyu, but since none of them had that intention, they could face her openly. The three exchanged a glance, and Chen Jitsai pulled out a gift for Wen Li. Ali, this is a token from us. Hope you don't think it's too little. Wen Li stared at the big red booklet in front of her. A property deed. She took it, flipped it open. Yes, a property deed. A penthouse apartment, much bigger than the one she lived in now. This had to be worth at least 10 million. She quickly closed it and held it out. Uncle, I can't accept this. No way. Xian Mei cut in, grabbing the deed and shoving it back into Wen Li's arms. You have to take it. Su sees you as his sister, so we see you as our daughter. Think of this apartment as your dowry from the Chen family. A small gesture. If you don't take it, how can we ever face you again? Be good. You have to accept. Chen Su chimed in. Sis, just take it. Taking it means you've fully accepted the family. Chen Jitsai added. Ali, don't be so formal with us. The Chen family is half your home now. That it's only right for parents to give their child a present. Wen Li looked at their eager faces and couldn't find a reason to say no. She took a breath and gave the two elders a sincere smile. Thank you, Dad, Mom. Chen Jitsai and Xian Mei froze. For a moment, the couple in their 50s were hit with the overwhelming feeling of having both a son and a daughter. Their eyes burned. But they'd spent half their lives in business and held it together. Chen Jitsai's voice came out thick. Today's a good day. Let's take a new family photo. I want to hang it in the living room. Xian Mei blinked back the sting. Right. A family photo. She waved over a servant and told her to call the photography team. Chen Su leaned toward Wen Li. They're a little emotional. Don't mind them. Sis. If you don't want to do it, I'll stop them. No big deal. He clearly wanted the photo too, but he wouldn't push. She'd already called the Chen's mom and dad. A family photo didn't bother her. It was their way of showing they accepted her. Wen Li turned to him. I don't mind. The adoption ended with a family photo. The next day at noon, Wen Li met Duan Qiyu at an upscale restaurant. They'd just placed their orders when two familiar figures approached. One of them swept a cold, harsh glance over her. His voice was a sneer. Brother, you don't mind if we join you, do you? Duan Jingming's words were aimed at Duan Qiyu, but his eyes stayed locked on Wen Li.